Um, Yeah, yeah, totally. Well, I would say first off, thank you for doing this. It's fun. Is good to be in like connection with you formally once again in the real world. And I guess are we already streaming live? Are we on already? Oh, cool. Cool. And so for anyone that may be randomly stumbling in the door, hello once again. But yeah, I think I had sent over a few points of discussion earlier, kind of just some random stuff that I had been thinking of. But like, you know how it is, as soon as you're like, yes, I would like to talk about these things, you're like, oh wait, what? Or you'll just like instantly change your mind. So that was just kind of the energy of the moment. But yeah, I don't know what's happening in your world. How is it over there, out on the wild, beautiful ocean at the moment? Nice, nice. Yeah. Uh, oh, nice Twitch, wonderful. I love it. I'm gonna go ahead and share this as we're talking. Let me go ahead and find this on the nice Facebook Twitch screen here. But yeah, as we're doing that, first off, I just want to say I love that you're focused on energetic anatomy, at least in the moment, because you may or may not be aware. I know we're on kind of a similar timeline at the moment, but that is very much the focus of what we're doing within the classes and the work that we are doing right now in the School of Multidimensional
Can you hear me? Can you
Intuition.
hear
In
me?
fact,
Hello?
in my
Hello?
opinion, there is a whole other network of stuff that's activating on the body right now. And so we can talk in specificity about some of that. Also, if you want, and I don't know if this is necessarily stuff that we always want to do within the context of like a live stream, but we can also do in the moment literally like a live energy body readout if we want to look at certain areas of energetic anatomy, or at the very least get in tune with meridians. Because I think, I don't know, maybe you have noticed this, but it seems to me that there's an entirely new, it's kind of like an upgrade in bandwidth that's taking place within the meridian system. Specifically in the meridians. I mean, chakras as well. There's like a whole other layer of stuff. But anyway, I don't know if you've noticed anything about that. Have you?
Yeah, there's a lot of upgrades. Before I answer that, I'm just like checking because they said I was like muted. Can you guys hear me now?
I will say your audio is a little low, at least from my point of view.
Okay, and we're on a lot of upgrades. Yep, cool. I think I hear myself, but like, I guess you guys let me know if you can definitely hear. But yeah, it looks like we're live on both YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. Yep, cool. Sounds good. And let's like link up all the comment sections and all that. So you got yours streaming from Face. So do you have yours streaming too?
Oh, so I actually just shared the video on Facebook. I think in order for me to kind of restream, I would have had to sign up for restream, and it was just, there just wasn't really
All
time
right, yeah.
at the moment.
Are you
So
able to
I'll
do
just end up
OBS
sharing it.
on your end?
I'm sorry.
Are you
I'm
able to
sorry.
do OBS or something like open broadcast?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I have never,
Okay.
I have never used it. So there's, yeah, sorry.
That's
But,
fine.
yeah, you can just kind of relay the comments to me, and I'll look at stuff on Facebook Live. I
Okay,
guess
so
I'm kind of
okay,
like
so
yeah.
so do you have your own Facebook Live going? I'm just
Oh no, I literally just shared the video that you posted.
okay.
I shared it. So, yeah.
I'm trying to like experiment. So I'm like, are you able? I'm wondering if you're able to also stream at the same time on your thing.
You know what? I will actually try. Let's see what happens.
Let's see if we can get as many.
For everyone
going
here,
at
we're going
once.
through a live experiment here. Let's see if we can.
Or if it stops it or something. I don't know.
I don't know. Let's just see what happens. Let's just see what happens. Is this actually part of the quantum internet? Are we connecting to the quantum?
The
internet?
quantum internet. Yeah. The multiple all at once, right? Okay. So I got a chat going. Sweet. Let's see how many. Chat is ready to display. Yes, please show that.
So anyways, while we're sort of getting this set up, I actually have kind of a non-sequitorial question for you, because I noticed you've been you were streaming The Witcher a while back, right? You were doing like a Witcher playthrough. Have you been playing any other games lately? And if so, what?
Barely, because I got so much other stuff to do. I'm mostly playing the game of life in like a little bit more than what like people will talk about, like an actual. I kind of like, because it's so very much like a video game. You just like gain access to things, and then you tap into like, okay, how do I? Because you're trying to. What's the goal of most video games? To level up, to get better, to take on better challenges, to complete quests, missions, all that. Same thing for this Earth. She sends me a bunch of messages and like, what do I got to do to make the timeline better, and all these other concepts of peace and resolution and blocks that have happened and wounds to us, and the awakening of her and me as a cell, and then figuring out how to get the body upgraded and leveling up, and the different level ups involved, and what missions I got to complete for that, and abilities. So it's really nice and fun, and that kind of takes most of my time. But otherwise, I got what is it called? Deus Ex Machina. Whoop.
Oh well, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, totally.
And some. I guess I will do more of the Witcher stuff. I don't know if people are that interested in. Mostly, people that are awakening, I think, would be.
What's wild is most people probably aren't, but see, like people like me are like, really? So what are they playing? I want to know. Like, but who knows? Maybe a lot of us are. But I mean, I am at least. Sorry to like cut you off there, but
thank you.
I'm excited.
What you been up to in entertainment and stuff?
See if I can actually, you know what? First off, I just want to say that I really appreciate the way that you articulate the manner in which you interface with what I think is also very, I mean, literally like a video game. It is literally the game realm or the digitized kind of non-physical interactive frequency that a lot of us are working with. And it's really cool to hear you say that, because I've been kind of on the fence with trying to articulate this sort of what I believe to be, and you know, we're going to kind of stay in like the metaphorical region of that game realm, is that it's like these cheat codes and these sort of side avenues and these ways that we can like hack that, like, you know, like metaphorical grid. I think we're in the stage in which it is literally like that on an everyday basis. And as cheesy as this is going to sound to some of those people out there, I think you're going to know what I mean, Sean. It's like every single day I'm walking around in this sandbox environment we live in, looking for those little portals and those little holes and those areas in which we're going to be moving our consciousness in and out and through, and how to create them and how to work with the coding in the body, and watching the level to which at the same time those openings and those sort of hackable, alterable, changeable portions of our conscious realm are also literally appearing within the physical body, which is, I don't know, maybe that's a lot to unpack. I have a feeling you're going to know what I'm talking about, but it's a really, really interesting thing. It's just really cool to hear you articulate that in your own way, because it's like a literal reality that I'm working with and seeing every day. And it's very hard to be like, okay, guys, check it out. What we're doing is we're actually at the stage in which we're leveling up that character and those assignments or those codes or whatever it is. We're now uploading those into the, you know, like whatever you want to call it. But now what we're doing is we're actually at the stage. Oh, there we go. I hear.
Yeah, I'm just making sure because there's some glitching going on. So
I feel you. Right. I feel you. I was just kind of ranting on that, but yeah, like aside from that, I would say, you know, most of the time it feels like I'm caught up in creating these classes and stuff right now. I have like a weird obsession with, I just like continue to like do this weird like class cycle right now, which has been awesome because a lot of people are showing up. But outside of that, I've been playing games like Dark Souls, kind of like just.
Oh, that's a fun one.
Like, right? Yeah, like the most like obscure and. I don't know what the word I'm looking for. Maybe like punishing the better, but anyway.
Yeah, more challenging, like and going up, and then what makes us stronger. Okay, before I go into that, because there's some, yeah, my screen. I don't think you can't really see it like on my screen. I'm just making sure. 1 second.
I can see you and hear you actually.
Because it's like
really, kind of really well.
Okay, because.
Are you getting buffering?
Yeah, and like some of my screens are like blacking out. I'm like, what does that mean? So whatever. Okay.
It seems to be operational from the viewpoint of Zoom, but for those of you guys that are watching, I'm gonna check it over on the Facebook stream.
Yeah. Check it on your end before we go deep, and then we'll go as deep as we can. You guys, sorry for the technical difficulties.
See, here's the crazy thing. I can't even find your stream on Facebook now. That's
wild.
Really?
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah,
So for everyone out there in social media land, we're experiencing some glitches here. Oh, here you are. Whoa, interesting. All right. Cool. So we had...
You found it?
Sorry for the audio repeating stuff, everybody. We're having some weird stuff here today. Give me 1 second.
Okay, so you found it?
Yes, and actually, yeah, you are totally operational. You're totally operational on Facebook. So I'll be monitoring the Facebook side as well. And it looks like your screen is totally clear. You are in there, but if you want, we can even take a moment and kind of stabilize the stream.
Yeah, it looks like it's going good. I'll keep the comments there. Okay, so yeah, so.
Totally.
Making sure everything.
You're live from a very strange realm here today, everyone. Sean's actually in like sort of like an alternate pocket realm at the moment, and so there's a little bit of like there's a little bit more of like a delay in getting his data over here. It's just kind of one of the foundational experiences of fourth density. So the technology's catching up.
That's true. Okay, it seems pretty good, at least that I can see. Yeah, so I think we can keep it going. I'm just checking on YouTube real quick, and then we can go. So yeah, what?
Those of you guys on Facebook, help us stabilize the time stream. Sorry to instantly like cut you off there.
Okay, so it seems good. We got a few people watching. Okay. Wonderful. Okay. So how has your waking up in this dream been in more unfoldments and dealing with the current dramas of the world? How have they been affecting
you? Waking up in the dream. I would say since 2015, which was, I think, right around the time you and I met. It was, and I'm going to instantly jump into the really deep end of the pool, you guys. I think myself and a lot of us here on the Earth plane actually physically died. I think there were actual physical events in which myself and others actually went through a physical death. And what happened was there was part of a future self-integration. There was part of a walk-in process. There was a whole weird thing that occurred. But for me, I would say since, just the past few years, it has been literally relearning some whole other identity that exists inside me. I think just within this past, year alone, I think each and every one of us is kind of adopting or kind of stepping into another phase of that. But lately it has been intense. It has been weird. I think, kind of like we were saying earlier, there's this whole other level of capability or interaction that's occurring with what some of us, what we might call that sort of game of life aspect, or like what I would call the fourth density shared astral space, which is also, and I think for some of us, I can't even say the word, bewildering on a certain level, but I think it's the greatest time that we could have possibly chosen to be here. So I don't even know if that makes sense.
Yeah, very exciting, right? It's like unwrapping a present that's covered in stress, but like, because we can easily just go into the stress like, oh, this is the worst ever, and just complain about it. But it's kind of like everything's ramping up very quickly, so it's challenging. And for those that have been sitting on their thumbs and couch potatoing for most of what it was previous to this, will feel even more stressed because they have to catch up to keep survival going. But it's kind of like the collapse of a lot of negative potentials for the future, and it getting shaken off and not able to continue in the timeline, and a lot of other things, many all at once. So very, very interesting and fun when you get over the hump that you wake up with every day of energetic waves of emotional stagnation and limitation. That's like we getting handed a bunch of work and challenges to do every day, and then get over them and make our lives better and stronger, and turning lemonade from lemons to lemonade. All that.
Oh, totally. I feel you.
Yeah, so if you want, we can go back and forth and ask each other questions and stuff.
Actually,
and then
it's crazy. I was thinking the same thing, and I actually specifically wanted to ask you a question that I don't know if you have explained this for some time. Maybe this is something you have talked about in the past, so forgive me if you're like, dude, I did shows on this whole concept, so sorry.
No problem.
If you already have, but I was wondering, like, when did you first start stepping into whatever this work is that you are doing? Because there is something that is oddly similar about what people like you and I do, but there's also something about Sean Bond specifically that is incredibly unique in terms of how you deliver, how you disseminate, how you like connect with the multidimensional realms. When did that first start for you, or whatever feels relevant there?
That's nice of you to say. Same with you. Like you're very what's the word, like leaps and bounds kind of person. Moving forward, just a lot of like leaps and bounds concept. Similarly, ups and downs, that kind of, because like going through the school system, it's always like a pull back into 3D and normalcy, and then so like as like going through those and that trying to get me down, me having all these like rise ups through dreams and experiences, and like playing as a kid and imagination and things coming into my mind and wanting to create realms, and it's kind of like caretakership for animals, and like looking at extinct animals and playing all the time with these toys of having like a zoo, kind of like a Jurassic Park of all types of creatures and near extinct beings, and then going deep into that and having dreams about like breeding them and some world management stuff, and I not really know what that is, but then going into astral experiences, beings visiting me, having the imaginary friends, and then going out of school and having some unique psychedelic experiences, as well as when beings show up, not psychedelic, not drug related, and having to deal with that, and then stress.
The weirdest one. That's right.
Go ahead.
That's the weirdest one, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, and clear audience and that turning on, and when you ever get when you if you close your eyes and some very vivid HD bright stuff comes in, and you're not controlling it, and it's like, whoa, what is that?
Actually, yes. I've literally like closed my eyes and had like beings rush at me like straight, like boom, like right from my face. And that's a very interesting thing. That's like, I think that's a thing that will happen when we will sort of like connect with people that will actually have sentient entity attachments, or in some cases people will have like a field of energy that hangs out in the auric field that will exist kind of like a recording or like a device, or it sounds crazy for some people, but it's literally like a security system, or in some cases it'll be this barrier that will exist outside of people that will affect how other people, have, like reaction to them. But yeah, absolutely. It's funny that you had mentioned that, because that's another one of those things where it's like, I'm trying to find an avenue with which to articulate stuff like that. But yeah, that's definitely real.
Right. And I had a lot of experiences that when I was younger, I kind of blocked out of my mind, and there was like, it would usually have like the day or the week like where it's running through my mind, and then I get enough distractions, and then it kind of goes out, and I never have a conversation with anyone like growing up in the teens to where it would bring up that topic again. So it just like naturally just fades away, and then eventually I forget about it, especially if it's something that's very unique and powerful and opening up of horizons and what is possible. And so if things have a chess move against that are also monitoring a person, they'll limit that, and then those will have the amnesia barriers, and then it's like you got to go track back what happened, and it's usually through how it affected you and what else was involved in it, or if there's a line of dialogue upgrades, or like, if you're tracking out where did that come from. And if you want to make a list for your body of all the things that you slowly forgot, that's a good list to have, and then you go into it. Oh, and then I eventually got very detail-oriented with the wanting to learn how to program the body and make it stronger, smarter, more open, aware, and then I went into the horizon of what you can program it to do, and what are we inheriting, and then it eventually evolved into psychic stuff, which I always started as a scientist, skeptic, because that's what my family is, and being born into that. So I had the gauntlet of having to constantly question, and that being a voice in my head like, oh, be skeptical of this, and then balancing it up, and then still having mystical experiences and visitations and seeing UFOs and all that. So not able to deny it anymore, and that barrier that of propaganda and thought police that like tries to shroud anyone that tries to enter this topic in, oh, there's great likelihood this is not real and everyone's scamming you, and it's well, I can't say that. So I'm going to find the people that also say, since like I've gone through the gauntlet of skeptics, now I'm going to go through the gauntlet of people that have actually experienced it and are saying that, and also don't seem to be gaining anything out of it. That's a good one. Because like this doesn't benefit anyone. This doesn't make you popular. This doesn't make you like rich. This doesn't do all the physical stuff. So kind of seeing as the mainstream media wants to throw people under a bus with this, none of this benefits anyone. Why? What's the motivation of lying? Right? I
feel you.
How about you? How was your journey?
In terms of this work that we are doing now, or I guess, and there's always a number of ways that we can like label it or call it or whatever it is. I think I had a lot of hints really early on in my life that, probably like you, where I was like, something's really weird and different. But in my case, I think because what I'm finding is I'm a bit older than I think some of the other people within our sort of soul group in terms of stuff. I'm actually in my 40s, and so I think for me, growing up in the 90s, I was in a whole other stage of just kind of collective consciousness and sort of outlook around this stuff. And so for me, what would now be called, empathic and psychic or intuitive was that, for most of my life, a very, very grave weakness of extreme oversensitivity and just inability to really be sovereign in your energy in the social, kind of in the social dimension. So, for me, it was chaos and just upheaval and just all sorts of stuff. And, in sort of fast forwarding to the here and now, I look at people like yourself specifically, maybe also me as well, since we're here in this, like in this moment, but I look at those types of individuals as these people that chose to have those deeply polarizing experiences early on, because I think for each of us that are doing this kind of stuff, it comes with a very particular type of traumatization that for each of us is going to be a little bit different and unique in its own specific way. But it comes with this, these just sort of trials that we have. I call them the maladies of the starseed, which is kind of a cheesy term now, but so for me it was a lot of chaos. But I think at this stage of the game, we are really being called as a soul group to assist those other members out there and those people that are going through the same sort of awkward awakening journeys and the sort of leveraging of the academic realm or the scientific realm against the spiritual realm, and and understanding also all of that, like you were saying, those people that are scamming you. Because I don't know about you, but I see a lot of people within the false light ascension teachings like community that I know for a fact are literally just rehashing someone else's blog and just putting it forward again as this different sort of a teaching. I watch it literally every day, all the way down to the extent that I'm seeing people take the stuff that I'm putting out there and literally create the exact same version of it using nearly the same words or the same colors or the same phrasing, and they just keep pumping this stuff out. And so what I've noticed is that there is a very fine line in terms of those of us that are truly creating something real here, but at the same time, each and every one of us is capable of doing it. And so I look at people like you as those true individuals and the truly authentic examples of like, this is what actual multi-dimensional intuitive healing and interfacing in the astral realms looks like, and it's individual for each of us. And so I don't know, I guess I'm just going on a weird rant about that, but
that's a good point. I've been noticing that too. I don't it's like it irks a little bit, but it's like I understand that it needs to spread out more, and it's
part of the process, right?
The information is at least getting to more people. But yeah, I guess I understand like why people are doing it, because they don't feel that activated, and they're at least setting up their career with the foundational work from people that they agree with, which is, I guess, what is it? Is that it is a compliment to for the person, but it's like also a crutch. And I've also seen some spiritual healers that are like waning back and forth, especially during this time, where I saw a lot of them take a dive during the pandemic, spiritually, like everyone did. It's like everyone had to go more into the root chakra stuff and
incubation period.
Yeah, like the whole structure got like messed with, and so we have to build it back up again, stronger, greater foundation. But that's okay. And their abilities are technically less capable at the moment, psychically, to read into new stuff. And that's okay, and that's why they're like, oh, okay, let me search out other people. And that's part of what makes them more whole to getting what they need, and they feel an intuition to get that out, and then, repeat that. But it's still external work, and also some of the people, like, because everyone took a dive, and so like not just their heroes and the people that are replaying the information, they both took a dive. So in the entanglement and having to seek truth outside of yourself, there's a give and take. And I've seen some people that have turned from spiritual healers into parasites, and now they're like kind of stealing energy from the people that listen in, and so that's not fun. Seeing that there's still some benefit, but it's mostly having to do with resilience and then becoming immune to a parasite. And then that shuts down their abilities.
Have to get the parasite first, right?
Yeah, and that shuts down some of the people that are listening to these abilities. So, because there's like a dynamic where the person that's giving the information wants to hold a hierarchy over the people, and they're trying to like make this illusion that like a parasite that's good at what it does, not being good but like evil, like that's successful, it would want to make it so that their stealing is camouflage, they don't feel it, and they throw all the baggage forward in the timeline so that the person doesn't feel it, and then they associate it with something else, and then shutting down their abilities so they have to seek them out for help, and then stealing those abilities to demonstrate that live to those people, and then it be this like parasitic thing that keeps the person looking externally because they don't feel activated or whole, and the heart shining because the heart and all the other technology had to shut down to stop things from stealing its energy, because that's a natural defense mechanism. I'm not doing that, but feel free to check my work. I would never want to be a parasite.
Well, here's what's crazy. Sorry to just like throw this in there, but and for those of you guys that are watching, like they will already know that I'm the least astrological, intuitive psychic in the world. Like I don't even know all the signs. I'm the worst at that stuff. I only look at the layers of the non-physical body. But I think a lot of it has to do with some sort of a Saturn alignment that has been taking place or occurring just in the past few months, and other people that are watching are going to instantly know exactly what I'm talking about. They'll be able to, with more specificity. But if there's one thing I've noticed, just at least in the past few months, there has been a collective restructuring of the ways in which certain teachings and this kind of like appearance of a whole new soul group. And I think that part of that corresponds with, just this sort of like collective awakening thing. But at the same time, and this is going to be me kind of turning the wheel of the car as I do in a weird way. We're going that kind of leads me to a question that I wanted to ask you. And this has been a little bit of a personal observation that I've been making. Maybe you've seen it as well. It kind of goes in line with a little bit of the fakery or the mimicry that I think we might see in this community. But what I've noticed, certain people that were these big channelers, let's say they've been channeling this being for like a decade or maybe a few years, or somebody from the inner earth or this dimension, or for those people that seem to have made a daily kind of product practice of dispensing or disseminating, almost like a scheduled channeling from the such and such council. It seems to me that it's almost like at a certain stage they begin to recycle their own kind of layers of consciousness, and it's almost like at a certain stage what was once the actual such and such dimensional council, they're kind of gone, or it's like this shadow version of it. It's like you're watching like kind of like a reflection on the mirror from another room, and you're like, yeah, they're still there, but what they really are doing is maybe they're interfacing with a version of their unconsciousness with a higher self. And have you noticed anything like that, especially with the long-term channelers, and what do you think it is?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And with channeling, and I don't have like anything totally against it. I know that it needs to come out and become an ability, especially more popular ability. And there's a lot of hookups, and there's a lot of trips in that process, especially with the maintaining ourselves and being clear with it, and not letting it get hijacked, which is not really well known how to prevent that, other than extreme confidence. So uh, I see a lot of really getting more and more pain filled up kind of channelers that have a lot of secret stuff in their background, but you know, yeah, but so it's easier to channel something that's actually related to the person's soul. So versions of them, Source, Earth Mother, higher self, other versions of them that are coming in past lives, older like chains going up, or the stream of light going back to like older immigrations and territory, branching off of management versions of themselves, in between the tree of light of consciousness of all who they are, and then them reaching connections that are clear, soul family, and then going out from there in beings that are trustworthy. If somebody is in the dynamic of just channeling anyone and anything, especially if it has like the good purpose of channeling versions of yourself is they're less likely to want any purpose of harming you or imprinting on you, controlling you, domination, or any type of interference, because there's a myriad of upgrades that we get while we're channeling, or as a person. A lot of things happen that upgrade the channeler, so there'll be things in the insertion point that will go into future things. And then there's the dynamic of a channeler that is going into a stream and they're using what they're doing all the time. They're not improving it and checking all corners of the emotional body and doing the inner work afterwards to see this is all this stuff. And being able to tell when a person is, when themself is channeling into information, and if they're just rehashing things that they know about that are in their definition that's easily pieceable, put together for the person's stream, versus when they're tuning into completely new information they never heard before, and or is got a whole nother feel to it and has more energy coming out through the light language aspect. That a person can feel, and that's always interesting and dramatic when it is, more so open. And of course, there's then the translator capacity, and the heart field, and the throat, and the person's crown, in all those activities, and how well. And then within the stream, there's a lot that has to be taken care of to keep the stream strong and constantly grounding it. There's things that have to do with what's listening in, that will be in the interference, and like what's tagging on to people, and then things that want to shut down the connection, and then it slowly lessens, and then a person can kind of feel it, but they have to keep going in the stream. And then whatever breath work or things, coping mechanisms that the person forms to overtake that, or transmute, or unity, or whatever. It's fun. But yeah.
Thank you.
What have you noticed with like the channel community, and what do you see for the future of it?
What I have noticed specifically is maybe a little bit too specific, in the sense that I look at it from the standpoint of understanding anatomically and through the layers of activation in the energy body what's actually happening. Because one of the things I noticed within myself and some of the clients and other people that I've worked with and just watched, especially that I've watched over the past couple of years, is and I think, maybe this is just a thing that I do, maybe other people do it as well, but when I'm listening to a person talking, or I'm watching them on a screen, it's like I'm tapping into, very much like yourself, like these whole other layers of what's going on. And what I began to notice after a while was this repeating theme of certain areas, certain places in the upper chakras, and probably what I believe to be specific regions of the brain would start to light up or vibrate in individuals when I would hear them talking. And so I would watch videos, and I'm not going to name names, but I would see people's older stuff and I would get an entirely different vibratory response than I would get at this stage. And I would watch them channel the same being today that they were doing in, I don't know, 2009 or whatever. But it was as if a different part of the body was interacting and sending or working with whatever that frequency is. And so one of the things I've been noticing is that there is a region where I believe in the back of the brain. Other people may differ, because I don't know if this is the specific place, but it's called Wernicke's region, right in the back of the head, and it's directly in line, strangely enough, with one of the external chakras that some people call the Bindu chakra or the moon portal, right in the back of the head, which strangely enough also corresponds with another piece of I call just kind of an etheric valve. Other people call it a chakra, but it's also next to the third eye, and it's part of kind of like the third eye circuitry. Some people call it a soma chakra, and there's sort of other words for it. But what I started to notice was that these areas on the body would sort of be vibrational in individuals, that it wasn't just like they were channeling some seventh, like density being, but it would be people that were just talking or sort of doing other stuff, or even healers. And so in my own work, I began to identify that, at least my soft conclusions is, these are activity areas when we're interfacing with extra dimensional consciousness. But there's another thing that seems to be happening, in which there's a different type of interfacing that occurs within the throat and the solar plexus. It will also be vibrational in areas of the brain, because clearly we're going to discern and disseminate all sorts of stuff using it as a device in and of itself. But what I found is there's an entirely different system, and I'm still trying to unpack what that is. But I think that there's sort of a subtle hijacking and a feedback loop that can occur within the consciousness layers of the body as we go through this fourth density awakening, that for some of us that are really, really good at channeling, there's a stage in which we unconsciously flip our own channel, and people just kind of get stuck in their own thing over and over again. And it's just kind of an observation that I've been making. I don't know why I went on such a rant about it. But
yeah, I've been observing similarly, and so like with the huge quarantining down of a lot of parts and pieces and stuff throughout the multiverse down to here that has been going on with our physical quarantine. A lot of things finding themselves in closer together and having to deal with each other more, and even themselves in parts of themselves that they haven't had to deal with in a while, and that's kind of being forced on them. I see a lot of, if people feel, because I don't see it entirely the fault of a lot of these people that are in the spiritual movement that are not doing, they're not saying they're not doing enough work, but they're not doing specific types of work their body needs, and they're choosing the path instead of allowing it to flow to them exactly what they need to do, and they're tunnel visioning a specific thing that they feel that they want, that's their spiritual path that they need, and it's keeping them from all spectrums of what their body needs spiritually, and then allowing that to the shadow to constantly come out and remind them, and remind them through also their clients or people watching them, and they're not necessarily aware of the parasitic behavior. Most parasites don't know they're parasites, and it's mostly an observable feature of the body where they stop making their own energy, and they have to externally source their energy from their environment and all that, and that would go along with like chakras and the heart generators turning off, and a level of sacred output of energy turning off, and then going into a signature frequency of parasitic energy, or taking, which mostly is comprised to the ego, the shadow, and aspects of them that are coming up in altars that will bleed over. A lot, like 98% of what I saw in the big drop that happened in the quarantine is people needed to go deeper into survival mechanism, which was like their higher self and their I am and the ego freaking out and be like, oh, we need help, and then it, in that state of being, that it was one of the triggers for creation of an altar, which is usually I'll find like different parts of themselves going back in time in their past lives that they've experienced. The past life coming forward to the now and syncing up with their consciousness and coming out as like an ability that they learned to help protect them. Usually a lot of people needed a lot of defense, offense, safety, energy, and grounding foundation, survival, to thrival, and then building up to abundance and interconnectedness and a lot of things as the safety net blanket. And that going back in time and whatever they needed. And since a lot of predators were being quarantined down here, everyone had to grow up to that level to be able to face that as if it's nothing. And since a lot of people don't deal with like figuring out that there are parasites in the environment, and a lot of the energy drain has been this parasite and apex predator battle, and that have been choosing factions to determine what the future would be, and then them trying to drain from the population constantly to be able to support that, and that exposing levels of which parasitic behavior can happen, and then our population becoming slowly immune to that, and then having to form that immunity through situations such as tapping into past lives where they gain these abilities in offense, defense, and safety, and etc. And then needing like super weapons from whatever this version of you that really needed it during Atlantis or the fall of Egypt or whatever, and that will come up with very dark versions of us or very light versions of us, but like because offense is and the capability of survival in the root chakra goes into the capabilities of usually the dark that goes into, oh hey, this shadowy dark version of yourself from the fall of Atlantis is bleeding over now and is really interacting with the person's ego and is a little parasitic and is also parasiting off them, because that's most of where the energy drain in a person will come from, is the negative programs that are compressed in the ego, in the shadow, and it trying to steal energy from the host until it bulks itself up and continues on because it's doing a thing that it needs, it feels it's a need to do for survival. But again, that's in the illusion of separation. So a person that is feeling that they are going through this, or could be, or know somebody that is, or any healers that want to make sure, because that's a good thing. That's like even if you're super confident, doing the action to make sure you're not a parasite is like a big difference in between an egoic person that's like, it would never happen to me, I am above it all, and you know. And having that illusion could perpetuate, because that, besides belief, that's not our only mechanism that makes things true. It's also feeling how much love and happiness you're having, how you can experience and feel everyone around you as yourself, and be like there's a lot of output to it, and that like represents, and any little like lessening of the heart can indicate that we're having something mess with us. Of course, we're being born into that, so it just seems like it's normal. So it's not quite their fault, but a great way to tell that you're not doing this is to initiate, hey, stop parasitic behavior, and do whatever you need to do to unblock creating your own energy. Shrink down the ego and brace it like in a hug, so it becomes one and pure with you, and then the voices get far less chatty. When it's chatty, that means it's like overwhelmed with something. And also that darkest self, or the dark self that's coming up in altars, healing those and bringing that to what they need so that they rise out of the darkness. And then all your darkest self, if you can get your darkest self to rise up in the light, every other version of you, all those other lives and altar bleed overs also rise with it. And then that compresses parasitic behavior down in the shadow as we do shadow work to maintenance it. Balancing light and dark together, because the dark really wants attention, it will grab everything, and so like shrinking that down with loving detachment, and then bringing it to a space where you resolve its issues by also bringing the light and the dark closer together, and like getting them to talk to each other and negotiate on what they can do to where they unite, and there's no more self-defeating programs in the body. Oh yeah, and then I also see a bunch of people getting a whole bunch of soul shards coming back to them, and they end up being dirty because of whatever experience they were in, or like were trapped in time, or this big vault opened up, or what. There's a lot of things around the planet, and then them getting hit with that, and then feeling like a lot of emotions from it, and it's like and yeah, so it's like dirty power, and it's like it's powerful, but you got to clean it off, and then that like take down people a notch, but ultimately they gain even more once they rebuild it back up, kind of thing. Sorry if it took a while.
Oh no, that was actually perfect. I was just like emphatically agreeing with you on so much of that, especially when you mentioned the soul shard retrieval as coming back with what I call pieces of that egoic consciousness that still exists. I have encountered the very same thing. I've worked with other people that have had that, and here's what's crazy. Also, the stuff that you're saying ties in with the activation of the external network of chakras around the body that we were talking about in the very beginning. Also related to the energy of channeling. I mean, we're kind of talking about a strange collective activation that's taking place on a huge level right now. But yeah, very, 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 very interesting. I actually, at the same moment, lost the rest of my response to that. I was going to be like, oh yeah, this and that, but then I got mind slided.
Like, I'll just finish with the thing, because I just reminded, and then I'll ask you, like, what would you recommend for a person that is concerned that, hey, I might have like my ability to make my own energy turned off, and my body's being set to grab energy from the environment that doesn't want to be a part of me, kind of thing, and then like bringing that back to that state of being. Like mine, if somebody wants to do something that will make a significant difference, not saying it will resolve everything because there's a lot of finite details, but this will like blast through it quite a bit. Like take a salt bath, or like that's very candly, singing bowl music, very get into your deep into the center of your heart, letting go of everything. Silence, if you can reach silence of mind. Your blissful emotions, no time, stillness, and deep breathing at its fullest, especially silence of mind, because if your mind's overactive, that shows attachment, and you want to get completely detached from everything. That's the main goal of this, is to let go of everything that is not you, to go into center. It's like letting go of all external. And like there's like the people that are like, oh, I'm afraid to let go of power and all that. There's external power and there's internal power. And in order to earn internal power, you have to let go of the external power. It's like you're turning it in. It's like, hey, I earned this, and then you're turning it into your whatever. There's not very good metaphors for this.
I feel you though.
It's like turning it into some store owner that's like, you earned this for whatever missions you're on and all that, and then you get this back for it, and it's usually the better version of it. You got to trade in all the external to get the better version of it. You can do this slowly, in whatever pace necessary, and you don't even have to know what it is. You got to feel like all these thousands and millions of hands like letting go. It's like a pressure in the heart. It's like the heart wall, and you like pushing that farther and farther away from you, or transmuting it, and then you going deeper and deeper as like the consciousness drifts down the head, and you let go of the body too, and you go deep within. I call it, in my meditations, I call this like going into the eye of the needle. and going to the infinite and letting go of all the finite, because it is the chess games that want to imprint on us that, oh, we're involved in this game and this limitation and this pain, or all these things that are showing up to engage us. And sometimes it is true, and it works with the external world. But as if we set up our resolutionary process to where, while we're letting go of that, it resolves it, because we're a kind of like a big energy battery. So like as it entered our game, we can get it to sign up for, hey, as you enter my game and then I let go of you, you resolve all this big parasite energy harvesting system that you're entangled with all these people around the planet. That completely takes down, and then it will usually want to hold on as much as it can. Some of the things want to hold on deeper, and then you want to find what's that deeper layer of myself that I have to let go of, that it's holding on to. Or like usually like in the ego, control, or power, and then letting go of polarized control, bringing it to balance and being, and like ultimate being of, and fading out the old being, that's the negative stuff that you don't agree with but you feel is at least true in the moment, and then like pushing that away, putting that out of your perception as you bring in that thing that you envision of becoming, and then bringing that deeper and deeper, closer and closer, and brighter in your perception as you detach from that old and you feel it becoming true, and you have to breathe that to the point where you reality warp it to where it is true and there's no doubt anymore, kind of thing. That helps. What do you recommend for getting out of that state?
For getting out of the state of, I guess, just so I understand, that sort of maybe unconscious parasitism of energy, or the imbalance through which we might be sharing or accumulating others. Does that just so I understand?
It's an external attachment to the game of being a parasite, and since we don't want to be a parasite, like most people anyway, then it's all about detaching and lovingly detaching from that external game being imprinted onto us, and feeling it become true, because it will energetically, you will explode with bliss and love when you have fully let go of it. It's like a natural state. But like, what do you recommend?
Within the scope of the work that we do, there's usually a few places. I have like these kind of like go-to areas within the sort of energy body in which we tend to hold those frequencies, or the frequencies that will become distorted. Places like the psoas muscle, places like the sacral chakra, places like, especially for those of you guys that are dealing with maybe the imbalance of power, you said a very important keyword a few minutes ago, the heart wall, or the barriers through which we experience self-acceptance through our comparison and the seeing of ourself through the work in others. There's literal highways on the body that correspond with how we accumulate those emotions and those experiences. And first off, that's very pericardium meridian energy. It's not the only place, but just in the work that I've been doing time and time again, at least people who are unconsciously blocked, even those that will have kind of retained some like repetitious level of unconscious parasitism, and by that I mean, you know, like the unconscious kind of psychic vampires that will sort of draw energy from people and they make you feel great for a while, but later on it sort of draws it out. A lot of that is due to misconfiguration or emotional frequencies that will hold up in certain, you know, places like pericardium, like solar plexus, especially when it ties into like early childhood stuff. And so I would say to go about healing those, for me, it's going to be individual in each and every case based on like what we are showing up with. What the specific negative emotional frequency that we're encountering. If there's a kind of a mis-exchange of energy, I think there's go-to areas, and I don't know, maybe this is kind of a non-answer, but I think it's entirely individual. However, what I find is that, you know, whatever it is within that space, there seems to be certain antidotes toward always releasing whatever that is. And it's, you know, almost always when we find a bubble of shame, if we find a bubble of extreme fear, if we find a bubble of extreme aggression, if we find a bubble of extreme desire, if we find a bubble of extreme jealousy within the layers of the body, and also, you know, a bunch of other negative emotions, those, at least for me, are places where I will look for whatever, what we might call, I know we're going out there for some of you guys. I don't even know if anyone's watching, but what I would call the divergent frequency. And so in some cases it's entirely unconscious, and we'll hold that there. And I have had it myself with a lot of liver energy. And not that there's been a missharing of energy, but I'll accumulate other people's stuff. And I think it's something that each of us as a healer or a psychic on a certain level, everyone will have a certain area where it's like we just won't really look, and like you just get a bunch of stuff, and later on you're like, what the hell? And you know, in some cases, the stuff that we've been picking up, but in other cases, it manifests in the form of us engaging in just a whole different type of thought form environment. And I think, you know, depending on what's going on in there, that's why it's a very individual thing for each of us. But yeah, anyway, I don't know if that answered the question or if that was just a rant, but we utilize scalar toning and a whole other, you know, a whole bunch of other stuff to release that. And once again, everyone has their own method toward releasing it as well. But anyway, I'll pause there.
True. Yeah, and so and we could talk for hours. I guess you want to go through your questions. I'll also go through mine. We'll go back and forth.
Oh, right.
And then we'll ask the questions of the people.
You know what? Yeah, and I almost forgot what those are. But there was one of those things that I wanted to ask you, and just maybe your sort of viewpoint on this. One of the sort of themes that has been arising within my work, and also within the work of other people, and just, you know, a number of individuals within our primary soul group have been encountering what we call these primordial flames, or these frequencies of light or colored energy or conscious energy. It seems as though those frequencies on some level correspond with a remembering or a reawakening of just lineages or abilities or understandings. And so, without going on another long rant, at least on my end, I'll leave it there. But what are your viewpoints on that? What have you been seeing?
Yeah, I'd love to hear yours too. Yeah, I've been working with them too a lot more. As it's like, oh, okay, enough shadow work. Let's work on light. Okay, I don't really listen to that many people on externally, so I like to go internally. And I also know there's some books and stuff that go into the different flames and light sources, the light stars that somebody can activate, and also that their body is attuned to. There's things people can read in like the memoirs and little books that have been left over by awakening, activating people, yogis, gurus, and enlightened people. Like, I know Saint Germain did a thing while he was in jail, and he created a bunch of booklets of activating drawings and things that he experienced while going into vision quests into himself, and confronting different fires in the self, and then activating them, turning them on. I go into that too in vision questing internally into the nexus, the third eye and the soul and DNA, and going through the mystery schools of the self, and just doing the to-do list and what it wants me to do in visualization, and going forth as I see it, and then getting more capabilities, doing things at once, seeing all these different things around the room, and practicing abilities, and then you getting energy fountains and pedestals that you can turn on the fire or whatever, or get a guide that shows up that grants you something or gives you some type of object. And it's fun, and it works a lot of the time, and some more dramatically, especially as you go up the ranks. So recently I've been working on a lot with the energetic body, and like building off of it in greater foundations, and finding what's the secret stuff that is also categorized in everything, especially in the chakras, because they're not like people like to throw out the baby with the bathwater of chakra. That's only because people don't really know what they are, And people are removing, like, that remove chakras. I don't really actually see them removing chakras because they're like an energy vortex flow. I see them removing apertures, plugs, blocks, gateways, all these things that are limiting them, as well as siphoning off energy, which is powerful and good. So thank you for doing that. Just know that your higher self wants to sync up with you with the message that you're not removing the natural state of a flow vortex and beneficial portal that will bring energy in to a source that you can program it to. And if you have it negatively being programmed, of course it'll be used against you. And then in the disunity of the chakras, because there's also the concept of like, oh, let's replace the chakras and make it all one or whatever. It's like there's a natural effect of like when you, because all the chakras are separate in colors in a prism of light, for being able to be deciphered and seen more easily. And then when you work on all the individual stuff and clear it up, it all flows together and then syncs up and then becomes one automatically. It's like a quarantining thing that it does when something takes a big hit. It will put all the problems down into compartment sections so that it can be taken more easily, take care of, and also quarantine any problems down to just a section of it. So then when you take care of all that, it will flow together, perfect plumbing, all that, and then you can sync it all together and see it as one chakra working together that just branches out if you need to look into finite control room systems. So it's and also the chakras, I don't everyone's got a little bit different stuff added on based on their DNA, what they've earned, past life accumulation, and other stuff. But you can increase the capacity of different parts of your energy body, and that not be a bad thing. Only be a bad thing if you're letting things harvest you or block you or siphon things in or dump dirt, a lot of garbage energy on you, or monitor you is usually what I'll see it as abused. Flames and lights. So then there's the rainbow colors of your 7 colors that like initiates, and then you being able to spark that fire, make light sources within the self. There's stars in the center point of every chakra, and turning that on, all 7 colors going crazy output, if you can, to its fullest, and by visualization that it gets that going. Then there's the different forms of light technology and what they're good at, and then in reading them, working with them as a consciousness. They'll bring a lot to you, especially as you have them coming in, constantly fueling you and building up in like light density. And then the different types that, especially based on what you need as an individual to get to the next level, and then you working with that state of consciousness light, and then bringing that in and forming an ability to turn on the light either in the self or having it shine down, or like in the third eye, having that become brighter. And then there's even ones that, because light technology is very versatile. Like we like to say dark is like the only destroyer. No, dark, there's like this big blast of light that can like obliterate things. So like and dark and light are the same. Ultimately, it's light and lack of light, and they all branch from one. But again, light is closer to the source of power in being, and then them seeing good in everything else in creation, and then wanting that all to thrive and grow. And then dark is in the state of being of lack of light or away from light, or being able to learn how to survive with little resources of love or light. And then the whole chess game of survival and growth despite all that, and resilience. And then having to form those deadly, more likely to become evil, but that dark isn't necessarily evil. It can be like a big shield that protects light. If they come together and work together, you're going to see how they trade with each other, because they both can see each other as valuable, the light doesn't want to. It's like if two things that were originally one split, and like, okay, we got a bunch of stuff, and we got to figure out how to grow faster. And it's like, okay, you become the pure one that like I'm holding space for. That like, it's also, there's a divine feminine or masculine relationship with this, because women want to find the space holder that is able to hold space for them and strength and protection, so that they can go deeper into themselves, their power, which is what the light is doing. They're going deep into the truth of who they are. And because when somebody is going through that, a lot of things externally want to attack and be like, oh, bright light, let's get that. So the dark would be this thing that, in the person's body anyway, would compress all the undesirable things, the things attacking, the external limitations, all that, all into one place, and then trying to rise up despite all that. And so it's like this dynamic, and then if they're separate and they don't work with each other, then it falls apart for both of them. And so the dark will be like throwing shit at the light the entire time, and this will, nah. And then there's like, you betrayed me, and then you abandoned me, and then there's all this dynamic that separates them. And there's like this thing that you have to interview as like a therapist of a married couple
it's like you
has been going through a lot to get them to come together and embrace and love again. And then that's the power that everyone should take note of.
No, I agree. Thank you for explaining it on so many different levels like that. It's actually, that's very fascinating. Thank you.
Thank you. So a question I had for you.
Oh yeah.
Was, what do you think of base reality? And also, I've been noticing you have some greater creations going on there. So I'm wondering what you got going on.
What do I think of base reality? I think that okay, let's open that can of worms. I believe that it is very much at this stage, based upon our predetermined choices prior to incarnating, that a different layer of, we could say, operational capability becomes available to us for those that have made pre-existing agreements, have gone through certain trials, have gone through, healing and working with elements of ourselves. I think that at a certain stage of the game, the thing that we encounter as day-to-day reality becomes an incredibly pliable, alterable, and in some cases even erasable. The question, the exact manner to how and what end, and the procedural methods by which we obtain those goals, I think is also entirely individual to each of us. And so I think in answering that question, I think that I am at the stage of this video game journey here in this realm that we incarnated in which I am finding ways in which we are actually, it's like we created a mystery for ourselves. The ones that came here before and nestled within these little areas of our realm are like these secret messages and these recordings, and it's like items out there that we created for ourselves. And they're not necessarily here in the physical realm. They're pockets of experiential data that are going to play out on a number of different levels. And so I guess, and I realize I'm trying to answer this question, but what I think of it is, I think it is the absolutely most fantastic game that we ever created. The question is, for me, what did Matthew create for himself, and what were the greatest secrets that we left hidden in this realm, especially the ones that we created together? Because especially Sean, if you and I are having this conversation at some stage, it is because prior to this we came together and we're like, hey, we're gonna sneak this thing in there, we're gonna put that in there, get ready, 2020, boom. And here we are on Earth, and we're like, oh hey, what's up, dude, how's it going? But there's a whole other layer of something going on. And so for me, the question is, what's going on within that layer, that additional source coding that's made available to us within our operations in this matrix? To me, it's fascinating, but it's also horribly confusing. And so, I don't know if that answered anything at all, but
yeah, it does.
I see it in the moment.
Yeah, in base reality, I'm loving to hear different opinions on it, because I don't really hear that many people talking about it except recently. And then what is that, those foundational roots, programmer, Matrix, like Neo and the Matrix concepts of reality beyond this dream, of the dream that was previous to this dream as we enter this game, that is most likely dreaming us now.
Oh God.
And what we can do with that original body, or what it's inactive, and what it would appear like if we got suddenly good at sleepwalking in that body, and like what happens? What do you think?
That's a really that's like that is a multi-layered thing. I feel actually here, and this is almost a cop-out answer. I think that for each of us, the results and the manner in which that sleepwalking, quote unquote, that you're talking about, we have already been given the tools by which to create whatever that thing is for each of us. For me, the way I would describe that process is through the interfacing within other people's consciousness, within our own, and this manner in which, at least for me, we are all literally linked in this sort of realm that, and I realize in me answering this, I'm going on a weird non-sequitorial rant here, so forgive me, but it feels as if we are already connected in that, and we are even coming to the stage in which it's directionally positioned for a lot of us outside and above the back of the physical body, very much like the third-person video game view. And what I've noticed is there's sort of this interfacing that occurs in which I think when we move our consciousness up and out into certain areas in which we're interacting with this external layer of stuff, we are, and I realize maybe I'm diverting from the original meaning of what you were talking about, so forgive me, but we are effectively entering that sleepwalking state as if we were operating within one of those little tentacles maybe of that original body that you were talking about, like the original, the true version of you. And honestly, I don't know if that answered it or took it in a whole other weird direction, but
yeah, it does. And it's like springing up things in my mind of like, okay, are we able to? Because when I'm interviewing it, it's similar to the Matrix, kind of like when Neo woke up in a pod kind of thing, but the pod does not look like that, and it's not as bad as that movie, like in dystopia kind of thing, though there are archons and AI and apex predators that are there that invaded through Atlantis Fall, that is kind of being resolved in whatever way we can as we're in their dream, but like fighting that, and a lot of things don't like me talking about this, but me. And then how we're, because I've also had a lot of things try to project on me what's happening in base, and being able to resolve more in base reality resolves a lot of this like very more easily and quickly. You don't have to be awake there to resolve stuff, but it's easier, and there's also a layer of simulations and projections over top of that to influence what we believe is going on there. So, it's good to observe there, but not hold to it like it's absolute truth. And then having something that constantly tests the hologram to see what's going on, to see if it's a simulation and you're still sleeping. And there's even soft disclosure into this of like, if I've seen some things where there's like a mind parasite on somebody and it's trying to get them in a simulation, and then to believe they're still in it, and then they eventually like, oh, I'm still in the simulation, and they find a way out. And then they go through this whole, obstacle course to figure out how to get back in. And they find themselves waking up, and then the parasite is like next to them, like dropped off. But like and then there's like, it's still deeper because you're still under the parasite thing. It just put this thing out there to make you believe you're not anymore. Wow. And then like, how do we challenge that to the point where it's putting enough dramatic information and data to where like, oh yeah, I am awake there, because like if we've been in this dream long enough, we don't have to worry about if we wake up there that this dream cutting off. It's like a dreaming body has now become independent, So
Right.
it would be into a bilocation that bleeds over data now. And then if somebody does wake up, then that go into huge effects to make them more dimensionally capable. But go ahead and what you're saying.
Oh, what I was going to say is, I just, in tagging on to the very end of that, I believe that is actually real, that sort of alternate sort of space, or that other dimension. And you know, maybe I'm just grabbing on to one kind of fragment of what you were saying there, but everything that you are saying is making sense. And I want to be honest with you. When you mentioned that, like, somebody doesn't want me to talk about, I felt that mind sliding that occurs. It's literally happening right now. It's like that sort of gate that's like, you know, and you gotta fight. You gotta fight to pull back. What is it we were gonna say? So, I mean, I absolutely feel you. Yeah, I often wonder, are we in stasis right now? Maybe we're in stasis.
Yeah.
We're like in the stasis pod, and we're playing through those cyclical experimental things that we signed up for, you know. And anyway, I don't know.
Oh, yeah. And it's good to question these.
Timelines.
Yeah. Even if it's not true, it's good to question it. And
right.
If you ever find yourself in a simulation, even if you're in a simulation, it's involved in trying to harvest a person, or keep them distracted, or keep them going in a thing that's might be using them as an energy battery. And if you find yourself in that position, challenge it, challenge the cage, figure out how to get your energy cut off from external things siphoning it away. The biggest goal, no matter where you are, is how to become your greatest self. With what you have, what you're dealing with. And even if you're in a simulation, it's never too far gone. You can absolutely learn how to hack it and become an advanced technopath against anything. And then there's the layers of, even if you're in it, there's a part of you that's not really in it, and it's made of something else, and a certain level of realness deep to the core. And then figure out those layers of universes, because it's like hologram within a hologram, made by the universe hologram, then this galaxy making a hologram, the solar system, a little weird, that hologram, and then the Earth hologram, really weird, and then having a lot of overlays of different matrices and programmers, and then like AI-ish kind of archonic, like energy harvesting matrices that are overlaid on the original one for Earth that she set up, that was invaded and put viruses in and all that. And then figure out how to you're still in those other holograms, those older holograms, and you have an effect on them, and your psionics can even reach out past that and figure out a way out, find out the back door. I found there's always have to be a back door. Yeah. These simulations, these matrices, these prisons, these hell realms, all these things, it has to be. Otherwise, because like if you're thinking of making it, like 1% of beings have the authority to make these things, and the ones that are negatively being used have been stolen or imprinted and then taken over. So they're using the same program as the original owner made it, which usually makes it positive and make a way out, because if they found themselves in them, they wouldn't have a way out, and it'd be stupid. And the last ditch effort is to destroy the cage at that point. But there's usually always a way out, and it's usually behind things that the person in it does not want to look at, or the last place you'd ever look. The greatest shadow the person has, their greatest darkness, the thing they're most afraid of, the
thing they know you won't do. They'll never do that, and most of us never do. Sorry to just cut you off, but yeah.
Oh, go deep into that, and like embrace the pain. You win this game. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, I absolutely, completely agree. In kind of the context of a lot of the quote unquote timeline readings that I do, we are looking at ways in which, what is it that we need to do to break those, and what I call the surface level kind of matrix coding, because it seems to me when you talk about finding that back door, I am absolutely 100% in agreement. I think that we here on this physical earth plane have more back doors to alternate realms than we have can possibly measure or be made aware of. I think they're literally everywhere. The exact manner by which we tune in, discover, and make use of those back doors is, that's a whole other matter entirely. But yeah, no, that is a real thing. I feel heavy mind sliding around this topic, almost like it's like I gotta pull. Let's try to pull back into the content of it, which is incredibly difficult for me right now. But I think it is a literal fact of life that we are coming to the stage in which each of us will have our own ability to interact with that, whatever that frequency is, that energy. For me, it is in oftentimes interfacing with the meridians. Most often, I found that that's a very, very rapid avenue toward discovering what I call portals that exist within the body, or toward interfacing with the chakras on a different level. And I will also say, you can probably tell that was not the answer that I was going to give you. There's a whole other file there's a whole other file there that I cannot disseminate right now. It's very interesting to have that experience from time to time.
Let's see if you remember it, if you yank it back in and just go for it, and
it will come back. I certainly hope. It was very specific.
Things that we don't want to do, the pain, and there'll be multiple, because in this, especially this Earth Matrix. This one's the weirdest one I've ever seen. Yep. It's got, it's not one. It's like a bunch overlaid on top of each other. It's all these energy harvesting, because this is one of the last chess games that decide many of the other chess games in the multiverse. They finish the chess game okay, we're going to up each other now to prove who actually wins. Here.
Totally, they come to Earth to settle the score, right?
Yeah, and then matrices will be set up on other planets. If they're negative, like archonic ones, and they'll use those to harvest energy off of the population, and then the energy goes to things that the energy harvesters are using that they're invested in, such as this game. So that will extend the matrix to this solar system, try to overlay it onto this planet, and have backdoors with that. So it's a lot of matrices on top of each other, and we're letting go of layers, and we have been successfully. So good job, everyone that's matrix busters. Just don't get discouraged because there's a lot, and also don't get blindsided that it's all done. We did it. You will know when you've done it. So keep doing it. But it's every little matrix-y that you find the thread that unravels the whole sweater. Every little thing you take out, it helps. It makes less energy harvesting, less limitations on our species, because a lot of it wants to control how our species grows.
I totally agree, man.
Yeah.
I think some of the backdoors, this was the weird thing I'm going to say. I kind of lost it really quickly, so let me get it out. But I think that there are simple third density, almost completely mindless actions that we will take on a daily basis. Simple as turning a corner in a different way, or going into a new restaurant, or simply making one extra additional layer of effort into these highly resistant areas in our life that we never thought would have anything to do with multi-dimensional consciousness, intuitive access, or the layers of yourself. And we find that for a lot of us, I'll just say me, behind a lot of those weird bubbles of toxicity, or these weird, strange third density things that we do, it's like this little key becomes unlocked, or this little piece, and it's this very, very subtle process of unpacking that for each and every person. My God, there's so much there that I want to say that I can't. But you probably saw me type in there. I was just responding to the people on Facebook. I noticed there were some questions in the Facebook chat there. I also haven't been looking at that, so I apologize.
We'll take
hello,
care
everyone.
of that in a bit. Yeah, and thank you all for showing up. We will start asking. Going exactly what you said. Physical actions, no matter what state of consciousness you're in, there's a way, there's a path for you to take that gets you more and more out of it, and it releases all these blocks, gets you more into purity, more knowingness shining. You don't even have to know everything. It's like again, if you face the pain, you win the game, or you go into those places that are very uncomfortable, that you are afraid of. Like the movie Revolver goes into this exact concept of like getting out of the matrix of the mind, the ego, the world around us, the hologram, our self, and the experience of the multiplayer chess games. Not to go into solves, and that's not what I'm talking about, but we are one, and it's still a very advanced hologram that's more advanced than what people will talk about or even give it credit for because of Earth and the output it puts towards every member and keeping them here, and then resolving who they are so they grow, but at the same time how the dark abuses it, because even though there's the dark matrix overlay on top of the natural matrix of Earth, there's still the natural matrix that's doing its thing, which is not wanting to harm Earth. She's just taken a huge wound and is like trying to chess move through us to help her awaken, because it's like a grand chess game. And then so going to those places that are uncomfortable, like in the movie Revolver with Jason Statham, and he went into the elevator that he was afraid of, going into the elevator and being stuck in small places and confined and like at the will of somebody that's waiting for him at the bottom of the elevator with a gun, instead of taking the stairs, which he would have more control to escape. Which, you know, those are all those little tells of like what we're uncomfortable with and what's waiting there. And then doing what is uncomfortable, because that exposes in us what we're holding on to that wouldn't want to show itself, that is controlling our lives, that such as through the ego and the shadow. And through that exposing, you have the ability to dramatically show yourself that you can overcome it through your tools that you've accumulated in spirit, actions, actually having conversation with your ego, and letting go of control and power, or even if you let go of them and try to have the ego death, the ego won't die, but it will purify and then come back to wholeness and oneness, and it will be in its perfected state of being, which is demonstrated in the show in the even deeper layer in neutral capacity, like being a sacred neutral being of, even if this guy's holding a gun at the person and I'm in the elevator, they drop their gun and they don't succumb to fear, and they show that they're greater than that, and they just show divine love to them, because they've let go of the ego, which is the concept of the ego death, that the person can't shoot, they just start crying. It like dramatically affects their body and witness of who they are. It's like a bubble, sacred bubble, protection effect. It bounces off all things that would cause harm. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I feel you. I just have a really quick question, just so I can put it in the chat. What's your website? How do people get a hold of you?
Psionic League. Can you name drop your website? Psionicleague.com. If you want to join the league, I'll be doing more stuff in the future. I'm trying to get it. And if anyone's a web designer, contact me. I'm trying to find ways to do this better and make it so that get more teams, and then accumulate the ability to have a round table of psychics, and we all help each other, such as yourself.
Oh no, I love that. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt right then. I tried to put it in the Facebook chat. There it is. Wow, there's a wild delay on Facebook. Whoa, there it just showed up. I just put your website in there on the Facebook thing. Somebody asked a little while ago, if who does private sessions, and I'm at rememberyourmission.com, you guys, and we also have a program called the School of Multidimensional Intuition. We have a class starting next Sunday on October 25th. For those of you guys that are interested in learning about the Meridian system, I call it the Fourth Density Survival Series, in which what we're doing is we're working with the Meridian system and the chakra system on a little bit of a different level. We're using what is not really new technology, it's ancient technology that we have in each of us to create a scalar wave frequency with the human body. But aside from that, we are using that modality, which I called scalar toning, to begin a 6-week exploration of the meridians. We're going to be doing the 12 primary meridians over a 6-week period, in which what we're really doing is learning how to move our consciousness through these pathways. What we're doing is we're using the meridians as a mode of transportation rather than static or fixed invisible structures at which we, work with static points. We're using them as multi kind of directional pathways of consciousness in the body. And so one of the ways we do that is by, first looking at the emotional resonance and understanding how do we identify what meridians, what do they do, where do they go, what kind of, experiences. And so we're doing that in the School of Multidimensional Intuition. And then we also have this thing called the Blue Flame Collective, which is a monthly training program that I'm doing, which people can check out on Patreon. And I will put that in the chat really quick here. Not to go on a long rant about all my stuff. Everybody hears me do that all the time.
That's good.
So, sorry, guys.
But yeah. Good for them to know. And then we can do a few more. If you want to go over a few more of your questions, then we should probably address them. Did you want to take a restroom break before?
Oh, I am totally cool. If you need to, feel free.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can you hold the mic for a bit?
Oh yeah. Totally. Feel free. Take your time. And I also don't have any access to the comments. So for those of you guys that are watching here, if you are watching, please drop anything over on the Facebook chat. And so if you've been hanging out, me and Sean are just kind of chilling here today, talking about a bunch of random things. Just kind of generalized weirdness in this here strange realm. And so, yeah, I don't even know at this stage if anyone's watching on YouTube. One of the things we were going to do is do like a two-way streaming thing. And for some reason, everything on my computer just glitched out as we started. I couldn't even sign into YouTube for some reason. So, anyway, thanks for hanging out. For those of you guys out there in this strange realm, we do have a few people on Facebook here. So thank you for that. Thank you for being here. We got Gregor's Gunia here, and I apologize if I just massacred your name or mispronounced that. Thank you, Gregor. Can you give us your perspective and explanation about walk-ins? What is the purpose of walk-ins? Thank you. I know Sean's going to have his own input on this in a moment when he comes back, but in my own personal experience, I have personally experienced what I believe to be the walk-in dynamic in my own life, but through a little bit of a different perspective. I think that there are multiple levels of walk-ins, or what we would call a walk-in. And I guess to first summarize or to kind of softly define what is a walk-in is in generality when an aspect of yourself or another consciousness through some form of either predetermined or accidental occurrence will enter that physical body. And so there are many of us on the earth plane that during the course of our physical lifetime, another version of us will kind of begin interfacing, will enter this physical body, will begin working with us. And so in my opinion, it's one of the facts of life of our existence here in the physical realm, but there are multiple layers of it. I think that in addition to the walk-in or braided soul dynamic, I think there are also stages in the physical lifetime in which certain people will begin actively and also unconsciously. It's not a walk-in dynamic, but we'll begin interfacing with a future version of ourself. And now that Sean's back, he can kind of give his version of that as well. But that was actually, Gregor, thank you for that question, because that was actually one of the reasons why I first sought Sean in the very beginning. When I first ever encountered Sean's work in this world was because I believed I was having a walk-in or future self-integration process in my own life. And I was looking for people that could help me make sense of it and be like, what's going on? Why is everything changing? And so I don't know if that makes sense, but Sean, he was asking, this is on the Facebook comments, asking if you can give your perspective about walk-ins. What's the purpose?
Yeah, that's a good one. Can you hear me?
I'm actually going to go to the
That was a nice one. I like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I would
take it away on walk-ins. I'll be right back.
I agree complete with that. Yeah, most of them are from the future, interestingly. So it seems to be from the perspective of things that want to help this timeline, this reality, become better, and things that enter through that game through whatever means, and then they have the editor perspective of seeing what it takes to do that, and then like us being in our perspective, so like them going around doing that, and then seeing them having a presence in the future, because there's more capabilities, of course, and it's like comfortable. They then come, or if they're actually on another timeline from the future and they're wanting to, and they're going through some things that they're like, oh, this isn't a good path, we need to go back in time and change it. They're on to that last effort. They'll come back in time and influence the now. So a lot of it will have the greatest authority of interaction with other versions of themselves, so they'll find those especially. It doesn't have to be another version of itself, but like 70% of the time it is. Collective, it could be a very powerful version of us, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be like their main thing being the future. It may be even more powerful thing that does exist in the past, the future, and everywhere. It could be like a very big angelic version, or this ET that's coming in Starseed, or other time and space, other realms version of us, and them being involved in this game if they have the capacity to walk in. The walk-in scenario usually means that the person there on their own path either wants to go, leave, doesn't want to be here anymore, or isn't doing enough, or is been wounded or traumatized to the point where, you know, they want to do something else. And it's not even always like where they switch out, because a lot of the times in walk-in scenarios I see it like if you were to see your body as a bus, and the person in the driver's wheel steps out to be like in shotgun or the back seat or something, and then that new spirit that come in to be the driver's seat. And sometimes I'll see that naturally happening, where a spirit collective in a person will have this one spirit that it smuggles the really powerful spirit in past the Archon grid, and to where they have less blocks on them, and then they then up the trunk, and then they get out and they get them in the driver's seat, or they have a couple in between them, that like one that warms up the vehicle, gets everything ready with what it's good at, because it has like some great capability, usually like going up like the chakras, foundational work to make something stronger, and then pass it on to somebody else through puberty or past 18, and then all these coming of age kind of things. And then when they've gone through some interesting experiences and even near-death experiences or whatever, that will be like trigger points for the switching of the seats, or even one that wasn't in the body coming in. And like he said previously, a lot of the times it is other versions of us or beings from the future that are monitoring the timeline to make it better, and are bringing what is needed here to meet that future timeline and match it so that it can be anchored in the now. If that helps.
Agreed. I have even encountered a distorted walk-in scenario in which individuals that I had been working with claimed to actually have walked into the wrong body in the wrong dimension in the wrong realm. And here's the thing. I would say that it was actually kind of well, first of all, yes, it was a very distorted situation, but I think what it also was an example of when certain individuals through emotional traumatization will have this sort of alter split, that on certain level people will misidentify that as a walk-in. And so I've heard people actually confuse the sort of alter splitting process of, you know, divergent personalities as also a walk-in scenario, but they're in my opinion two kind of different things. But just to kind of throw that in there, it is absolutely a real thing. But anyway,
yeah, that's a good point. It shows like the dynamics of the transmigration of souls and how they get places, and that they can somehow find themselves sleeping on the bus and they missed their stop and they got off at a wrong stop, or there's like some distortion or purposeful disturbance in that flow of where a soul goes to where it ends up in the wrong body. or the body is like in the programming of the genetics, like in a fetus, and somehow the body becomes a different gender or all this other stuff, and it messes with their spiritual contracts, and they feel a wound so great in that it makes them super uncomfortable, and they have to change it. And like there's a dynamic to that, and like the positive aspect of it, where a person's so passionate about changing things that make them uncomfortable, to where they will make the world a better place, not necessarily for everyone, but at least for them, and especially if they're based in moral compass and alignment with seeing everyone as them, then they can make that a grand thing that is very powerful for this world. Or but also, you know, there's also the dynamic of why we're here and what we've also been before, and the dynamic of reincarnation, and that you've been other things before, you've been other species, and a lot of people are super uncomfortable being human, but they don't know, and and a lot of it goes into cultivating acceptance, because I've been an animal, cat, dog, fish, all the things that I can possibly see I wanted to be, including going out of the sine wave of male or female, and then being comfortable with that experience no matter what it is, and then being okay with what you end up being, and finding that happiness deep within because you create it yourself, but learning what is the capacity that needs to be dealt with in the trauma or the remedy with something that messes with our spiritual contracts for experience, and changes from plan A, B, C, all the way to like, oh, we're on our last like plan, and we've had to mix it up a little bit based on some things trying to limit us. Oh, I was really good at this, but this is completely blocked. I have to do this now, or whatever.
I love the way you like view and articulate that stuff. Thank you. Yeah.
What do you think of grid working in the dream and the astral? By the way, is for my other question. If you want to still do questions, we can kind of get the other people's questions in between, because I think they'll get a little like, hey, you're not answering my questions. That's cool.
Oh, right, yeah. What do I think of grid working? You know, for me, grid working, I think, has been through the lens of being one of those passive, active, and passive receivers or transmitters of energy. I think that it's something that for some of us we do simply by existing here and doing what we do in the physical realm. I consider myself at this stage of the game to be doing a lot less grid work and more collective work through kind of multi-dimensional channels that exist within individual consciousnesses, individual bodies. And so I don't know, at the risk of getting really weird, I consider myself more of like a kind of like a psychic surgeon at this stage rather than a sort of grid worker. And that's not to differentiate, with any real specific intention, other than to say that I think some of us, especially here in 2020, we are stepping into a very highly specialized and very specific set of skills or roles or abilities. And I think that within that soul group, there are people that are not only doing that grid work here in the physical realm by being the most embodied version of themselves, like the most truest version of yourself alone. Even if you don't know what a grid worker is, you're going to be enhancing and working with and healing that grid. But at the same time, there's also people who come here specifically for that goal. And so when we look at it through the lens of what's happening within the astral realm or grid keeping in the astral realm, I think it's a literal fact. I would just say also within that space, and I know this might be kind of a non sequitur, that I feel like I'm also one of those people, maybe this is you as well, Sean, that we are having a whole other life over there in that space already. There's like there's just, I don't know how to describe it. It's like we go there in our dreams and there's a whole other realm, and you'll have a whole other house and a whole other place that you live, and this whole other thing that's going on, and there's many of them. It's like multiple, all converging and happening all around the same space, and people are arriving constantly. That's one of been the hallmark experiences in that space, is that there's been literally us, and when I say us, I mean, you know, probably you and many other people that I encounter here in this realm. We are there, and it's like there's this arrival thing that takes place. There's just all kinds of wild stuff that's going on. So for me, I might perceive it entirely differently, and I might have also just branched off into a whole different question.
I agree with you completely, and like that goes into some cool subjects of our multidimensional bodies and capability of bilocation and being able to perceive into that, and meditation and dream and connection and bleed over of something that wants your attention. I'll like go into like an astral meditation. I'll find all these visions coming up, and I find in a scenario I had an astral body already doing things, and like I'm just sinking into it, and the knowingness comes, and then memory of like, oh, why was it here, and then it like getting out of autopilot, and all these autopilot things set up with sections of your own consciousness and what they would do normally, and then finding interesting existences I lead off planet or in planet or other realms in the dream astral. I had like this cool dream after I did like this huge grid working thing in Scotland that was like so vivid. It was just I'm tuning into it now more, and it's not it wasn't a dream. Oh, yeah. It was as if I was living an entirely different life, and it was a few months of it all compressed in time. And the scenario of it was like Earth, but more superpowers and abilities and magic, and but there was a bad military that was like trying to control everything, and they were trying to capture people with unique abilities and study them, and it made people form underground movements and groups and rebel things. And I was like in a group of psionic people, and we were like running from this government and forming hideouts, and I had some superpowers of different types. I could fly and jump. It was like this emotional feeling in my heart and solar plexus that I was like actually like feeling like an intensity of focus at it, and it would control like how I would like float. And then I was like working on combat, and I was like using levitation and like jumping really high and off of things, and because I was also fighting the military's branch of psionic activated people, and I could breathe underwater and like talk to animals, and I had this thing where I had this huge knowingness and remembrance. I kind of forgot about my other life, and it was like I was enmeshed in this, and I've been here for a while or ever, and I was just completely focused on all the missions and what we had to do to survive and try to take down this government group. And we were just like moving and doing these missions and like hopping fences and being secretive, and I was learning different abilities. And apparently you didn't have limitations on what abilities. You had things that you were good at when you were born. Some different things different people were better at than others, but they could ultimately learn from other people how to do those things, especially if the person was really good at teaching it, or like, oh, just don't, besides like, oh, I just do it. Yeah, they have a little bit more ways to describe things for you, and then the person practiced it enough they could. And it was really interesting, and I woke up out of that, and I was like, what the, oh my gosh, and it was just like a mind blow, and then I was able to remember that I had these other existences of myself going on, and this was another realm that's similar to this one. And that there's all these other realms, kind of like the Tree of Yggdrasil for Norse mythology, but not. Those are just the 9 main realms that people got the calling card for to go to in their realm jumping capability. And then there's way more beyond that Earth made, ones that are made from other planets that are bilocating on top of this one. And then there's like a bunch of travel in between that, and you can like categorize a lot of the realms as the light ones, the Tree of Light, the Tree of Life. Tree of Death is the one with, the hell realms. So,
yeah. Fascinating. That's an amazing dream. First off, it feels very much like a parallel timeline, and I don't know that I necessarily perceive it in the totality that you do, but I have noticed there is kind of like a delineation or a capability to move consciousness through those realms, which in and of themselves, I think, are sort of these states of consciousness or these beings that kind of give themselves to that process. I don't know if that makes sense, but to me, it's absolutely real, especially within the sort of spectrum of the hell realms that you've talked about there. Just like kind of all of that. It seems as though there is almost like a passage or this movement point that we reach in which you can experience those, I think, for better or worse. You know, it's kind of like a thing that you're able to interface with. But yeah, definitely makes sense. I do have one final question that I wanted to ask you about, and it was not one of the ones that I sent you, so I kind of like remembered it later. And it was also something that you kind of touched upon in the live that you did a few weeks ago. It's been one of the big focuses of my own work recently, and that is the concept of a mind virus, what they call the Wetiko, or what is essentially this sort of hostile, kind of ancient, sentient, parasitic wavelength or frequency of consciousness that seems to be everywhere on the earth plane right now. It affects both positively and negatively. But I'm just wondering your viewpoints on it. One of the things I noticed you mentioned in your live stream was that through your point of view, it was dangerous for people to interface with or work with that mind virus. And I was just wondering what you have to say about that, or anything that comes up for you.
Yeah. So it's a mission that is waiting to be resolved. It has a consciousness that reacts to people. It's trying to maintain a connection to most of the population. The one that you're talking about in North America, especially, but and that going along with the invasion with white man and Christopher Columbus and Ponce de Leon and Fountain of Youth and like a bunch of things trying to invade the dream world of Turtle Island and the rest of North America and all that. So a lot of it goes into the resolution of what's bleeding over. A lot from Fall of Atlantis, creation, Matrix being imprinted over us, and the Fall of Egypt, another one. Some were made fairly recently, but most of those in... Okay, I shouldn't talk about it. Okay, yeah. So I don't want to entangle people with these new thing more than what you're capable of. You'd work on one at a time, and it has to go with you want to detach yourself from it, and then if you can get into an equation where you are in unity with your entire country, or have formed a peace mission with your higher selves of everyone, to where everyone is getting in an agreement council to let go of this thing and detach from it as a parasite, so it shrinks more and more, and we can bleep it out of the reality entirely through getting it less energy sources to keep itself going. And that would be the way to resolve it. If one just wants to resolve it by themselves, beyond just detaching themselves from it, and you're doing other methods, it's an entanglement trap, which as you go through its game, then it will become more powerful in your game, and later come back with some forces that are usually going to be camouflaged, but will lessen your lights down and use you as a battery. Yeah. And then affect them with the mind virus concept. And there's a lot of mind virus belief systems. A lot of it will go into belief, vision, their orientation, habit patterns, their overall energy, where they won't go in the blinders, and people that are cut off from wanting to do spiritual, and then also morals, and then doing evil things. Yeah.
Interesting.
How about like last one with you, and then we should probably do some chat stuff.
Oh no, yeah, totally. I'm actually we are totally on the same page. But yeah, I was just wondering your sort of viewpoint on it. Thank you for breaking it down in that way. To me, it is probably the most pervasive element of parasitic, what I call frequency interference that's happening or at least that I encounter within the clientele and the people that I'm working with. So to me, it's absolutely fascinating. But I think there is also a little bit of, possibly a danger in sort of interfacing with whatever that is, and not so much in something that we would, and I know I'm kind of describing this in the third density terminology, but it's not the type of virus that we will pick up, but it's something that shows up within our ideology, within our behavior, within our alignment, within the manner in which we choose to encounter and like interact with other people. And so I think that, it's just, for me, it's one of those things to be made aware of. For me, the antidote against that is true embodiment, understanding the frequency of truth, and also purification of the mind body spirit complex, which is like a whole other can of worms in and of itself. It's like that's a whole other hour-long conversation right there.
That's a good way to say that. I'll probably have to use that too.
Thank you.
Purification, mind body spirit complex. I like that.
Yeah, that was actually that was literally what these I'll just say it. It sounds kind of crazy, but that was what these mantis beings, when I first started having contact in 2016, and this sort of like crown chakra pop thing happened for me, and I would try to talk and like interface with these things that showed up, and it was like I couldn't, and they would say like, purify your body. They would just tell it to me, and I'd be like, what do you mean, and so now here we are years later, and we understand there's a subtle rebalancing and a purification that takes place on multiple levels. And so anyway, I know we've been going on for quite a while here. Did you have anything else?
Yeah, the mantis beings, I had a conversation with one of the queens a bit ago. That was very dramatic for me. It was very prevalent in ability to communicate, and also even kind of touch me energetically from a distance, and so that very impressive. If you have soul family with that and you're able to audit things, then they're pretty nice one to practice live Skype call telepathy with. What kind of stuff do you have precognitively focused on for the future events of that you're allowed to talk about for coming up?
That's a good question. I will answer that by saying, first off, I'm not one of those intuitives that tends to be focused on collective movements within our soul group. I tend to view that through the individuality and the activations that I see within specific individuals. But when I look at kind of like collective movement in the future, it feels like we have, and for some people this is going to be a weird way to describe this, but from my viewpoint, we have already decided on what looks like a possible kind of co-created outcomes that are all being kind of rebalanced and kind of worked with and reformulated right here, right now, in this very month, and in the coming 60 days toward the end of this year. I think we are actually deciding on a few predetermined possible conclusions. And I say possible because from my point of view, there really are truly infinite timelines, but there's like large swaths of our Earth population have already made these sort of soft agreements on sort of versions of reality that we are stepping into. And so I think that when we talk about what's coming up in the future, it's actually going to be different for each of us based on what co-created and currently agreed upon version of reality that we're living in. For those of us right now that have firmly entrenched themselves in the third density COVID, parasitic control matrix timeline, I think they're going to be experiencing a very different thing than those of us that are on, what I would call, just a more organic ascension timeline. And so I would say internally in the human body in the coming months and years, I see a tremendous activation, a remembering. I see layers of our organs that are activating in ways that right now are kind of hard to conceptualize, because it's like our organs are developing a different layer of consciousness. I think the sort of avenues in the human body are also developing this sort of multi-directional flow. Our chakras are behaving differently. And so when I look at where we are going in terms of, future stuff, I look at it in terms of activation in the human body. And I think that kind of brings me to the idea that we are truly stepping into another template. There is a whole other version of you and me and everyone else that we're stepping into. And for me, one of the biggest avenues or the openings in that is in the solar eclipse. It's coming up on December 14th. this year, in which that's a huge opening. But anyway, I'll pause there. I know I'm going on and on. We've been here for a long time, but
oh yeah, when's the solar eclipse again?
That's December 14th.
It's
a total solar eclipse. I think it's primarily viewable. I think in kind of like the southern hemisphere possibly, but don't quote me on that, guys. You guys can just Google it on your own. But yeah, it's a total solar eclipse, and just from the work that I've been doing over the past few years, to me, and I think a lot of other people on the Earth plane, those represent a literal direct opening in that sort of pipeline, that sort of that wavelength that connects all the way through the multitude of the multidimensional versions of us, all the way through what some people call, also kind of a misnomer, the galactic center or the central sun, which in my opinion isn't even actually technically a sun. It's just a portal opening to the next stage. It's literally just a passage point. But anyway, not to go on a weird rant about that, but yeah, we have a huge opportunity opening for what is actual physical timeline shift, December 14th. So.
Yeah, thank you for inspiring me with that. That like helps me go more, because like you're also emitting more information than what you're saying. Going into the concept of astrological magic and activating different sections of ourself in our extensionary body and macro self, as above, so below, the stars within, and then seeing the different pulses from the galaxy or the universe or solar system, the star, and the different planets and how they affect us, and then getting ready for the different dates for that, so that it can sync up and then propel our journey even beyond what we're expecting. And I'm noticing a bunch of stuff onto that too. Like coming up is another. So there was a little one in the summer solstice for the galaxy pulse, and the next big one is I'm getting around January 5th. That has to do with at least from the galaxy, at least 10,000 times power increase for everyone. They can't be stopped, at least. And then if you're getting a lot of ceremony and able to protect yourself and cut off from parasites and grow and do something amazing and lovely and heart amplifying, and especially solar plexus. Yeah. Oh, I don't know.
Sorry to just throw that in there. I was like, could you be describing a possible solar event that you're seeing? Sorry if that's a total misleading.
Sure, well, we can go into that. If at full capacity, you can get 1 quadrillion times power amplification for like solar plexus concept. Solar events absolutely will be happening. I don't like going into the ones that cause EMP bursts and all that. I don't think Earth and the sun are very intelligent, and they're actively aware of what would harm our timeline, and it has those timelines where that has branched off and then observed if it went well or if it didn't. The ones that do go through them don't usually go well. If we're able to make our electronics better to where they don't get shorted out through that amount of burst, then the sun will start doing that more. But the sun will usually teeter on the edge of that, so that it can get in as much of an upgrade as possible without taking out our electronics, is usually how I see it. And some of the local events that get hit by a big blast from the solar storm sometimes will have outages, and of course, but that will go along with not the entire planet and the part of the planet that's facing the sun at that time too.
Right.
And then,
so you don't think that's on January 5th?
I don't. Well, a sun burst that will cause a blackout.
Maybe not a huge one. I was just curious if that's what you were referencing when you mentioned January 5th or like around that date. I was like, could it be a solar event? I wonder. So
the solar event is always changing in time. It is not set in stone at all, and it's going back and forth. It's not needed. It will it has to do with our consciousness. And if parts of us don't want that because that we're in fear of that, then it's stopping the sun from doing that. Of course, what it takes to do that, if we get our entire civilization to the level where we're like, okay, I've made Faraday cages for all my computers and they're backed up and all that. It's like, come on, sun, hit me. And then the sun will totally like blast off, because our consciousness absolutely affects the solar storm capability, especially if we go into the sun body as an expression of ourself. Like similar to what you're doing with meridians, and the unlocking of that, which can go deep, a person into that, as well as auric field control and the auric pores and how they can generate more energy, and you just be abundant with energy. The overlay of Earth body on top of us, and then her meridians going along with our meridians, or an overlay, and then the false meridians concept and us releasing that. I usually see the falser ones like on the side of the left side of the body, and being in a little disarray. It's kind of like the concept of people that are in the Mandela effect community will like, I remember the heart being more in the left part of the chest, and then now it's kind of coming more to the center. And there's like a grabbing on that's trying to keep that from being more center, and the center is a good thing. Centering of us in balance.
I totally agree. Sorry to be so emphatic there. There's a huge splitting occurring with the left side dynamics in the energy body right now. I mean, every single week I have clients coming to me talking about what, for some people out there, maybe you heard of it, maybe you haven't, but we do classify those under what are being called right now as J seals in the body. Some people call them J seals. Some people call them crucifix implants, which is a wild term. Other people call them death seals. But it's an absolutely real thing, even though it may have it may have some crazy ascension terminology attached to it. There are standardized miasmatic blockages that are continuing to persist along the left side of the body for a lot of us right now. It's totally, it is definitely a real thing. But also, that said, we could probably talk about this forever, but we have been here for quite some time. I wanted to open answer some questions. If you have any other questions, anything else you want to throw in there before we.
Yeah, we should. Well, we'll come up with our own questions. Let's address the people.
Yeah, go for it.
The people, ask your questions. Let's bring them in. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, wherever you're at, I'm going back to the beginning of the chat. Soul fractures.
I don't have any questions on mine.
Okay, so Erica Ann from Facebook says, soul fractures. Is it necessary to retrieve them? Is it necessary? It's good. It's good to. I think based on the game and how it's set up, unless you're adamant about no, I will not receive any more parts of myself, or unless it will automatically flow into becoming whole. But also necessary, there's an automatic aspect to it, because the fractures are still consciousness. They may be an inner child or something that whenever the representation in frozen time of the fracture reoccurring, and it may still be in the person, it may be stolen, and then you have to retrieve it. But sometimes they will come back to you if they're free. Retrieval, it's great. It's amazing. It helps you become very powerful very quickly, remembering a lot. Most of the spiritual stuff we talk about, a lot of it it will be stifled and stopped if you're not whole. So I hope that helps. What about you? What your thing?
I actually agree very much with what you're saying. I think that soul shard retrieval as a concept, or just kind of one of the dynamics here in this world, it's definitely real. I think there's aspects of us that will come back just on their own. There's things that we will call back. So there's not much that I can differentiate from what you're saying in that regard. But one thing I have noticed, and you kind of hinted at this earlier, is that even within the process of soul shard retrieval, we will have returned to us distorted egoic elements that would have applied to that version of us. And so it's not like we get granted this ancient piece of myself has suddenly returned, hallelujah, but and while that is a part of it, we will also be forced, for some of us, to deal with some of the themes or the things that we had to heal from that version of ourselves. And so it's like a multi-layered process. I think that for every person, this is probably an answer we can give to most everything. It's an individual thing for each of us based on so many agreements, so many experiences, all kinds of stuff that we accumulated before we got here. So yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Deep, yeah, man. Yeah, it's no one else's responsibility to clean up the shard, and especially the person that caused the damage. You can have like a debate about like, this is your responsibility. You caused damage to me. They don't want to do it anyway, so it's kind of like fighting with it. And then you're more capable anyway, so you end up getting the bill, unfortunately. So you answer this first. Let's see. Not letting their policy. I don't want. Okay. Have you got a technique for removing energy parasites? From Dominic Wall on YouTube.
Do we have a technique? Yes, absolutely. The specific technique that I'm using right now is known as scalar toning. And so what does that mean? Because it's always that's a heavy ascension buzzword in the moment, right? Scalar anything, right? No one really knows what it actually means or what it does. But it's a term that a lot of us have applied to essentially a wavelength of energy that persists beyond space and time, with the ability to be configured to a contagion, a frequency, an emotion, an experience, a color, whatever it is a multi-directional transmission of energy. And so we have the ability to create that within the body. At this stage, the way that I create it, the way that I also teach the people I work with to create it, is through an actual vocal tone that we create. It's a sound or a vibration that the human body is able to create, that for a lot of us is kind of like third density training wheels for creating a non-physical frequency. And so I use a modality of scalar toning to open up chakras, meridians, organs. In certain cases, we can use that sort of vibratory wavelength to really do a number of things. And so it's not just that we're creating this sound within the body. It's a bit more than that. There's a multi-level technique through which we do it. But at the same time, it is one of the most simple and basic of all of the healing technologies that have been granted to us. And so for each of us, it's a little bit different. I don't know if you saw me get distracted there. There was a huge ruckus upstairs. There's a huge thing just occurred in our apartments here in LA. I hope everybody's okay. But yeah, so that it is something that will show up for each of us in their own way. But yeah, we use a tone. We also use a thing called capsule phrases, which, not to go on a weird rant about it, but it is essentially the ability to use a phrase, oftentimes 3 syllables, and within that vibratory phrase, you can attach or create or send an incredible amount of energy. It's like these words that we use that underneath them are this whole other thing. And so I will pause there, but that's been kind of the primary methods that I've been using. Hopefully that makes sense.
Good one. Yeah, I use a bunch of things: psychic surgery, pulling them out, finding the tells, and then if anything is like tickling, like an indication of like siphoning off, because you're looking for the tells of, there's something attached to you, or attachment, thoughts, influence on the field, draining of energy, lack of energy, and then finding where they are, and then find those places. And you can do a bunch of things like grabbing or cutting them off, or I do like loving holds, because all the parasites have an origin, how they are created, like they're usually fractured beings from something, and they're being like spawned up as a negative chess move of an energy harvesting system for some apex predator somewhere. So I'll use, like, there'll be like different, there's like thousands of different types of species, some for every type of animal. That's like a lot of insects and other things, but yeah, you can find them where they are in the body, find the tells, and do something to tap into their consciousness and bring them to, while you're healing yourself, you heal them and get them out of parasitic mindset. And otherwise, like with enough love blast, you can get them very uncomfortable and to let go.
and you can expose them with your emotions, and then capture them, do some like purification thing. It depends on how much they're infringing on your free will, if they're doing negative things, and then your category of how to deal with them. I usually always combine love with it, but if I need to make them feel very uncomfortable or force them off of me or whatever, capture them and put them in through a training course to become a light being again, then I'll do that. There's a bunch of things. Eric Reines does some stuff on parasite removal if you want to look free information on that. Question from John West. Which Akashic record is best to use? For example, do you use the records of the planet, the galaxy, or something else way beyond that? That's a good question. You want to answer that first?
Oh, no, please.
Okay.
Go ahead.
It's kind of like Akashic is everywhere all at once, and like if time and space was it all an illusion, kind of if you compressed all molecules down and all these stars and all this space, it just becomes one kind of thing. It's all connected to a one, but and it permeates through all elementals in existence. The record keepers of territory and consciousness will have accumulated, and it be their territory, and you can tap into that and learn from them. You're mostly wanting to set up your own Akashic field and library in your heart and things that you've earned in accumulation and expanded into, and then you'll be connecting to ones such as Earth or the center of the galaxy or the sun or these different planets that you've gone to as you're downloading them in and making a copy for your own library. And then so it's kind of both, but like in an interconnected web of transference of copies of books, so that you don't have to rely on an external source and are taught to maintain that. Yeah, that helps. But yeah, did you want to say anything about the conscience?
I agree with that for the most part. I would also say that I think I am one of those intuitives or psychics or whatever you want to call it, that I have found in my own work that I don't really differentiate between the strands or the streams or frequencies of what we would call Akashic, either information or records or whatever you want to call it. I think that for those of us that are able to work within an operational need to know basis with efficiency in the moment, you will be granted whatever it is that you need. And so for me, it's not so much that I would differentiate between, looking at the Akashic information of this versus that. I think within your own genetic and multi-dimensional coding will exist the exact same layers of information. The question is, how do we access it? How do we make use of it? How do we begin to discern what is what and what layer of what are we looking at? For, once again, that's where things get really, really individual. But for me, I might be a little bit of a weirdo in that I'm just working with what is available in the moment. And for some reason, there's like this instant access that I think will be given to us based on intention, alignment, a whole bunch of things. So I don't necessarily differentiate. I don't know if that answers or not, but
it's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, here's another question, John West. Is it true that there are some issues that can only be only resolved by incarnating here and being in this body, or are we able to resolve absolutely anything ourselves in our own realm creations? Go ahead first.
Ooh, that's a good question. I think we come here to Earth to resolve nearly everything. This is kind of like the place where we all agree, let's go settle it, and this is where everything gets settled. I think within the third density physical space, it is a realm that is used for that. I think it is also a realm that is used for so many other things that there will probably be a number of experiences and things that we're going to be called to go through that are going to be entirely outside of what can be balanced here on Earth. I think that it is, though, however, the physical representation on maybe a fractalized level of each and every interaction that will need to also take place for our soul to go through this ascension thing. So I think that, by and large, most of what we go through down here on Earth is actually part of that part of that process. And yeah, there are probably, many things that cannot be solved here. I don't know, maybe I, instantly distorted that question, but I think it goes both ways. But we come here to resolve and work out those third density issues, and I think ultimately create waves that echo through every single version of us, if that makes sense. At the same time, it's like we can affect everything here on Earth with the decisions we're making. So I don't know. Hopefully that makes sense at this point. I'm kind of slurring my words now. So
yeah, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
In the same question, yes, I agree. And there's some things that you can't resolve anywhere else but here. Some things, in comparison, if you wanted to resolve them other places, you have to, like, I've seen some to the concept level of you'd have to do like a quintillion amount of lifetimes to resolve the same thing that you'd resolve in one here. And you can even go past that in beyond expectations here. And it's like a constant, because we're born into it. It's like nothing, but it's super dramatic for other species in comparison. And being a super hybrid here as human and resolving all this stuff constantly for other lineages, just anchored being here, yeah. Super, it's like the best resolver you could get. So being here is great. It makes all your future lives and other simultaneously existing lives in other worlds much better, including realms here, because this realm on surface, big drama, big. So it's like no other gets the game that ends all chess games kind of thing, of course. Mm-hmm. So it would resolve all those things, that thread to pull. So it sucks being here, but if you can, that's part of that acceptance part, which like balance, wanting to change the world to the heaven that you perceive, that you can imagine, and an acceptance of the world as it is. Some of the things won't change until you accept it. And even like being in your greatest state of being, if you're not happy no matter where you go, if you're not happy being in hell, then you may not be happy everywhere else. It's like one of those big challenges. But if you can be happy in hell, then you can be happy everywhere else, and realize that you are being your truth. Like happiness goes along with truth, of course, like as you find who you truly are. So
thank you.
Another one. If you want to find questions, go ahead and I'll
I actually don't have access to those. I was just looking at the Facebook stream comments. But yeah,
what did you find?
Actually, here, let me see. What do we got? We'll do one other question, and then I'm gonna roll out of here. Let's see. Actually, here we go on the Facebook screen. Hello, everyone on Facebook. We got 21 people hanging out. Good to see you guys. Actually, here we go. Right at the bottom, Gregor says, "Can you talk about the beginning of timeline event? Did it happen on Syrian workstation?" That's a very interesting question. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know how to answer that. I don't know that the Syrian frequency or Syrian consciousness, in my opinion, had a hand in the creation of a timeline event. But I think each and every one of us that exists here is creating or altering or working with that. Specificity to your question, I'm not sure. Maybe that wasn't the right one to take. But Sean, do you have anything you want to add about that?
Can you repeat the question? Kind of a little...
He says, "Can you talk about beginning of timeline event? Did it happen on Syrian workstation?" And intuitively, it feels like there could be a little bit of a language barrier there, but I think he's referring to either possibly the beginning of just our existence in this realm as a timeline event, possibly, and it having something to do with Syrian energy. Anyway, take what you can.
Oh, that's a deep question. Let me tune into that a little bit. I'd love to hear.
I will look for another one as well while you're.
Yeah. Let's both take a little moment on that. It's complicated, especially with timeline wars. So, let me see if I can summarize things in words to make it easier. like the birth of this realm, or like this could go into many different directions. So like either the birth of this realm, this dream, this light hologram creation, the restart of it after the fall of Atlantis, like going into recreation out of the uncreational event, the start of the planet, start of the solar system, all that. So like I'm gonna kind of go with what I think you're talking about. So timeline, this timeline, in concurrent like illusion of, one after another, moment to moment. Oh God, that's a still very complicated.
I feel you. No worries. Well, so I am totally with you on that.
Where do we go? Is it just asking to describe or give data about the beginning of the timeline? Where did you find this question?
Oh, it was on the Facebook thing. Sorry, and thank you, Gregor, for throwing that in there. We might have got a little confounded about the specificity. We're actually gonna move off of that one. I have kind of a bit of a better one on the Facebook side. And thank you for those of you guys on Facebook. They're like, "What are you trying to? Huh?"
Yeah, you probably gotta get going soon. I'll answer the questions after you leave.
It's all good. Yeah, here is one other one here. This is from JP Green on Facebook a little while ago. Actually, this is a very interesting one. He says, performing a dark ritual for a quest in a game for PC could open a connection with parasites unconsciously or because intense negative emotional energies. It sounds like what he's asking is it possible to open up a portal or to make a connection with negative parasitic entities through interactions in something like a game or maybe he's talking about video games. Kind of sounds like he is, but what do you think about that?
That's a really good intuition. Can you go into your perspective first, since you gotta go soon?
My opinion is that it is. Technically, I believe it is possible. If you want to connect with a certain type of consciousness, or if you hold the intention to connect with a certain type of consciousness, I think here on the Earth plane, it is possible to do so within any sort of moment in which you're able to bring in a spirit of reverence or go through some sort of ritual interaction to create that energy. I think if you're going through something and say like a video game and you're just playing along with a certain thing, because he mentions killing of NPCs in the game environment, I don't know that necessarily opens up a direct portal to something negatively entering your field. But I think just the very concept of it alone is something that is within the realm of possibility based on your own internal condition, your emotional alignment, your own previous programming, previous internalized trauma. There's so many different variables at this stage that we can reliably say for one person, they're going to be just doing a thing. They're just playing a whatever, and for other people, based on what's going on with you, it's going to be an entirely different thing altogether. And so, I don't know if that made sense. I think it's possible, but it's a case by case thing. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah. And, it is, and I wouldn't say with all games, and it's about the dynamic chess game of entanglement. The people that made it and their intention, and things that are trying to dominate industries, and what their intention is behind the creators. So multiple intentions overlaying, and of course the dark want to make a chess move with whatever they can see, and inverting and flipping and reversing stuff. And so that will happen, and then there will be a chess move back and forth of what they can get away with imprinting, based on the growth of the parasite and its power into people's realities, and it's shrinking down. There's a natural state of expanding and shrinking with the different parasites, and then timing going along with that. Some of the video games more so than others. And then there's the counter chess move of light, where they can purify the dark's chess move. And since the dark is very unaware of things, it'll usually be when the video game is freshest that it will have more dark imprintations that are still going out, trying to feed off of everyone in the money making and all that. So I've seen some games that have like portals in the box art, like this one.
Yep.
Call of Duty is like one of the bigger things that does like rituals on people.
Yep.
Like some of the themes I've even seen them try to get a person to like run around the map, and like some of the zombie ones especially, that like is an Arch of Fear, and that will influence people to have zombie dreams. It will portal into their dream world and like flood like zombies in there, and then it messes with their dream world. So there's some very deep haunting parasitic things with some of the games. And I found portals that open up from entanglement with the box art, where every like few weeks it will like pulse open a field that tries to parasitically entangle and steal people's stuff, and then open up more things. But that's again based on the person and the environment and what they're doing to counteract that, because someone can completely shut down those and practice their ability to shut down portals. There's some missions in like some of the zombie ones that like, oh, you go around the map looking for this secret book, and there's like even ones with black magic in them. Oh, you activate this pentagram and you summon this final boss, and then that's a ritual, and that'll totally get the person involved in ritual. Though there's positive aspects of games. I know people that overlay their mission completion stuff in the unseen with them actually completing missions and things in the video game, and them having fun and enjoying and like getting concepts out, especially if it's new and it's just like rehashing the same thing over and over again. But they can complete like game psionics. Go into, you overlay your psionic presence over a game, like if it was football or something, and you're like, the goal means something, and we were trading, and everyone involved in the game is like doing like bets, and like, if you guys win, we get this, and we win the pot that everyone like gave towards. And then there's like goal orientations with getting to the finish line or meeting the goal, and then it complete in themselves, and they get a huge boost of endorphins when it happens, and a lot go along with that. So it's not all bad, but
yeah, it's like a multi-layered thing. It can be repurposed for even your own energetic stuff. I think that's kind of part of the Hallmark experience here, that later on at a certain stage that those interactions, or maybe even those like repetitious things that we go through, become repurposed or changed, or in some cases they're hijacked. I agree that there are layers of some sort of like, it's like either negative or sort of it's almost like this alternate coding that occurs within some of the mainstream like like the AAA kind of games like Call of Duty, because I honestly, you guys, I played nearly all of them. I am one of those people that I played not so much now, but I absolutely do. I've played that was kind of one of the last stages of my previous third density life was in gaming. And so there's a lot of programming that comes in, and there's a lot of kind of like, it's almost like this spiritual mirroring and processes and weird ritualistic things that you'll go through in video games that I think to some of us, in certain stages of discernment will be just, things that you do. It will have no spiritual impact. It's like, do you mean to say that by playing this video game, I'm doing this negative spiritual thing? No. Not necessarily, but there are certain elements and people and things and codes and interactions that can occur within that digital space that will have an entirely different impact on certain people and certain individuals that have, it's almost like a critical mass of energy buildup in certain areas, and that will facilitate the actual creation or the difference between it. I'm just playing a game toward I'm actually going through a like repetitious internalized ritual of entraining my body to a frequency. And so I would say if there is any inherent hazard within the ritualistic aspects of like something like video games, it would be in the entrainment of kind of your energy field toward, something other than, your own natural state. And so, I don't know, I can already feel myself going on a long
it's a deep topic and so, really important. So thank you for bringing this up. And yeah, it's not necessarily you're feeding into that. And there are video games that do that, but you can cut them off from doing that and still enjoy the game. Like a lot of people will like, I don't want to ever touch games again after that. It's a resiliency thing. There's something trying to imprint on you. You have to say, no, I'm not entering that game. and then compress it down. And like loving detachment is like, so that, because it has to enter your game and field and steal your energy to have it complete. And if it doesn't get that, then it doesn't do anything. And also, since it's entering your game, if you have a trap set up for it in your game, because it's also signing up for your game, then you can completely take down the entire energy harvesting system. That makes it less effective on everyone, including can completely take it down and set up a positive spiritual overseeing thing with the creators involved, to where they're whole again and they're able to be like, oh no, this isn't what my original intention was, and then get the original authorities back in their space, because they wouldn't usually want the parasitic creation. Like all these game designers, the graphic people that are drawing all these things, they're not like thinking, hey, I'm gonna harvest all these people's energy. Like same thing with other creators online in positive, negative, neutral. They're very unaware of this stuff, but they'll feel it, and some part of them will kind of know, but it's usually entangled with an external thing that's imprinted in them, in parasitic thing. There's like, I have been noticing some video games have been coming out to try to program people and push them in different directions. That's the overall thing. That's like the main thing to worry about. Like there's ones that are like the zombies. They're trying to bring that more into possibility, even though it is possible, and there are like, you know, local event places like underground bases in Haiti and Zombieland and some other things that have zombies, and the neutron bomb and the proteinaceous infectious ions. But the timeline of Earth does not want that to become a thing, so she deviates all the zombie apocalypse onto other timelines. So that's a ritual they're trying to create to make destruction of events to where they can continue to rule hell. And then there's these games called the Culling and Purge, which are trying to bring in the concept of Hunger Games society, and then make that a real thing, and people acclimated to that. Oh, like every one time every year we all go out and you can do anything, you can kill everyone, and that somehow be morally good, because that's so imprinting. That's not how consciousness works. That's not like, there isn't like, the core of our being isn't to be animalistic and treat everything horribly and want to get out our anger. That's our ego. That's like another layer. That's not the center of anything. That our center of everything is connected to everything, and we don't want to necessarily do harm to ourselves, because that's ultimately what we'd be doing. So they're trying to perpetuate the idea that that's the core of our being, and that we seek that out, and that will somehow make the world better. And then there's the Cthulhu ones that are trying to summon anti-gods, and I saw another video that had a giant owl as the main boss, like that looked like Moloch. Really? That thing in Bohemian Grove. And so there's, and a lot of this is top-down stuff. They're giving it to the programmers. It's and the people designing the game, and they're like, here, do this. You get paid. You don't get paid otherwise. It's an industry. So there's absolutely this arching thing that's trying to control everything. There's the rabbit hole called Gamergate, which is like, oh, if you're an indie industry, you can't just get your game out to anyone, and it's like a super hard thing. And there's they pay to play and make. It's just a really bad controlling dynamic, and a lot of people are pissed off about it.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, anything else you want to go before you have to go?
I don't know. I think that is pretty much it for now. I love the commentary on sort of like the whole like video game avatar self in the end. I think for a lot of us, that's kind of like the whole like dynamic that, you know, like we're working with, in like whatever sense it is or whatever setting. At least in myself, I consider it to be this interestingly bizarre layer of avatar interaction. And I don't know about you, most of the time when I'm in that gaming realm, for some reason I'm trying to slay these demons or huge monsters. I'm always going back to those crazy RPG games where we're doing that, or some sort of time travel thing. But anyway, thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for doing this crazy weird thing that we're doing here today. I would love to do this with you again in the very, very near future, hopefully.
Absolutely.
Everyone else that's been hanging out, I don't know if you're going to stay on. I'm probably going to go ahead and roll out, but is there anything you have coming up that you want to mention at all for everybody that's watching?
It's an honor and pleasure to have you on. So, like, if you can list your details of how to reach you and all that too.
Oh yeah, we're on your channel. Sorry. Oh my god.
Oh, both. We'll do both.
Oh right, yeah. Sorry, I'm all like acting like it's yeah, no, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me on.
I
And
like
I
your
would
dog in the back.
Oh yeah. That's
Yeah,
that's
this is fine. It's
Melvin, yeah, he's chilling. But yeah, for those of you guys that want to get a hold of me, you can do so through rememberyourmission.com. Both myself and Sean do private sessions. That's one of the things that was, at least I think you do private sessions still, right, Sean?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that was one of the questions that was up there earlier. But yeah, you guys can get a hold of me through my website, rememberyourmission.com, for group classes. We have a really cool one starting next Sunday, October 25th, working with the Meridians. But also on YouTube at the School of Multidimensional Intuition. On YouTube, we got a number of videos, group clearance, all sorts of stuff, dealing with a lot of the topics that we were talking about here. And then also on Patreon at Remember Your Mission, we have an incredible group that is growing there, far beyond anything that I thought was going to be possible. And so we do monthly training programs and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, that is it. So thanks for hanging out, man.
Thanks for being on. I'll probably like redo my stuff, but yeah, I'll be having like a thing with Carrie Cassidy soon, like a show, and like a few other staff people that I'm gonna go around looking for. Some people with telekinesis and other abilities and super soldiers and all that. So it'll be fun. So, yeah, and then hopefully we can do more shows, and it'll be some more big table, round table stuff. That'd be great.
I would love to.
Maybe we can do something with like Laura. I recommend. Somebody kept posting her name in the group, so I was like, okay.
Oh, nice.
Laura Eisenhower, come on in. Yeah, the water's great. It's beautiful.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, dude, I would love to. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I guess that is it, my friend. I'm actually gonna go ahead and roll out of here. But yeah, I will be in touch. And like honestly, once again, I know I've said this, last time, but thank you for being a part of my weird movie, Sean. Seriously, thank you for like being on this timeline. And for being one of the people that, who post this stuff on Facebook and all this zany shit that we're a part of and that we signed up for here in this strange physical realm. Because honestly, I don't know about you, but I mean, we really did. Like, we chose to come in here and do this weird thing. And, I don't know. To me, it's the greatest honor. So
thanks for being in my movie and my dream. I appreciate it. And it will show up more and more. And I'll be more weird. Yeah,
absolutely. Cool. I'm gonna roll out of here, my friend. Take care of yourself.
Okay, you too. Have a good one. Yeah. Let's see if I can. Yeah. Let's see if I can resolve this for one person streaming. Okay. Should be good. And how's everybody doing? Everybody there? Okay. Let's just check on everything. So it's working good, and then I'll answer you guys' question, and I'll roll out. Fantastic. Okay. Let's see what questions we got. Okay. So yeah, with the game stuff, hope that helped. Yeah, but yeah, you enjoy the game. Don't let it imprint on you. You will feel when it's starting to imprint, especially with like violence or like things to try to change behavior or mindset or like how you think about things. Some will be, of course, good, and at least it's like the dark's perception and what they're trying to get people to believe, so they're matching their perception. And you just find the light's perspective, and you balance them out and bring them together, because it's not going to be totally great just accepting what the dark believes. Because its chess move is, while you entangle with the dark, is to change you by looking at it. So yeah, there's all these horrible games coming out, but gladly they're fading in the background because of the constant what's the word? Low attention span and boredom factor that like constantly is like, oh, I need another game, and just keep going. And it was just good. But then yeah, different beliefs, and then adhering to those beliefs, and they'll be whole rabbit holes that are very close to truth, and will take down people down a rabbit hole of truth, which is good. And then, but there's the dynamic of when a teacher is either aware or not aware, and giving them like positive gold nugget truths, and then one dark one, and that is limiting and not fully true, and then missing that. And so that going along with the dogmas and not being holding to it in tiredness, but allowing it to flourish and blossom in concept. Because a lot of these games bring concept and the basics. So, oh, this could exist and this, and then it ends up being able to come into your life more after that. Once you have the basics, you can take off with things in perception. Okay, yeah. Connection with parasites and constantly become intense negative emotional energies. Yep. So transmuting those. A lot of the emotions will either... so if you purify your game console, you can ground the crap out of it and then bring up sacred energy, get some stones put around it, make sure portals aren't closing, sage the crap out of each of your discs and the box art and the console itself, because it will get overloaded. It will... Some of these games definitely have some dark magicians projecting over them, for sure. Very... this will like bring up deja vu, because I remember like going into these when I was first like waking up, and then not knowing if I'd ever talk about it. Yeah, killing NPCs, killing anything is interesting. It has an effect, some of it, and then after, you know, just like it's like a thing, it's like whatever, and it trains you, and it doesn't have to be negative and making you resilient. It's a long-term chess move to desensitize us, which is okay if you're killing for self-defense. It's not okay if it's teaching you that it's okay to just kill. And sometimes it's like fun, like if it's a GTA thing and you're just going around, like what would happen if I'm evil, kind of thing. And it's like, okay, this is kind of fun. And it's like, just crash into things and like 20 points, pedestrian. So sometimes you need to get that out of the way. And then like growing up, being taught, you need to be taught in moral codes. That's okay to do in a video game, but not here. And then differentiating why. And of course, if a kid doesn't get that, then they may get turned down a bad path, especially if they're constantly entangling with the AI system, and you know the internet is full of just dirty energy being projected through it. It's not a healthy system at all. But we can cope with that and become greater and go into technopathy and beyond. So it's not gonna, me saying anything isn't gonna stop people. So it's mostly about coping mechanism. Not saying it's bad tool, just knowing that it's dirty tool, and it can be used positively. And then especially if you purify everything, make it sacred, it can be a very powerful tool, especially going into game magic, and then like forming your own games and inspiring your entire life. 15 on right now. Yeah, I do. We do private sessions healing. Go to psionicleague.com. Go to my scheduler. I am swamped with emails. It's very overwhelming. I barely want to go through it daily. I gotta get us. Anyone interested in secretary job or marketing or graphics design in that is good at tuning up websites, contact me. I'd love to trade, or I also got money, don't worry. But I'll totally upgrade you in exchange, because I need help with this. I'm doing it myself, but difference between virtual... Okay, here's a good one. What's the difference between virtual reality and base reality, and the amount of data that is involved? That's a good question. Base reality is older. It's like the first realm created for beings that want to enter into the Earth game and like link their consciousness into the dream. With that, this dream is very protected, so it's got a lot of security into that, so you can't just get in. And then it was set up by the founders of Earth, and very secure. Took a lot to invade during Atlantis, and then even after that, it ended up being secure. And then such a security afterwards, where barely anything can enter it, except, and then it's being left with the chess game of what's already there, and then that coming to peace and wholeness as people that are there and here simultaneously rise up here in themselves, and then resolve that. Virtual reality is like a not as old form, but like is interconnected with other planets in their concept of the electrical realm that exists through electromagnetic fields, wiring, electrical current, and formations in artificial intelligence or synthetic intelligence, and elementals of different types, mostly electric, lightning, energetic charge elementals, and the metal that is involved. There's dragons, there's a lot of demons, there's a lot of parasitic forms of energy that are maintained in like the servers. Like a lot of the servers or the maintenance, the main processor and programmer, the bulk of these realms, the cyber realms. But yeah, they have entanglement, and you can psionically get involved with it. It's harder though, of course, because technopathy is quite a to-do list to get good at. It's kind of like Tron for some perspectives, and you can dream it, you can have it affect your dreams. There's a lot, and then the spirits that are involved in that, in their growth. So yeah, two different things. The base reality is less. There's also a programmer realm and a safety kind of bubble for the founders, like their main like home of protection. Those are all different places. Can you explain Pindar concept? Not more than most people. It's a term that's being thrown around for like a male leadership of an ancient Roman and Greek, that like springing off of draconian, alpha draconis, reptoids of male figurehead, both psionically leadership and controller of armies. It's a rank. It's like the opposite of the queen, like the male and the female. So that there's not really too much more to go into that. And there's other species that kind of have the same, like it's all conceptual, and they can call it different things in English. Our translator for this. I see it like a game, okay. But now all our avatars will be able to enter different versions of the same network of the game, and we'll be able to travel through so many, types of realms. Okay, I'm just going through all the comments, seeing what questions we have. Love all your comments, though. More types of realms, shared value, potential energy. We're in all game masters of our own reality. We can build it. Yes. Yeah, I like that. Yep. It's very real. It's this. What is real? If it's your electrical signals coming, that the brain, the perception of the brain of light coming back and forward to you, then hey, like Morpheus would say. But there's also layers of real and non-real energy, and what lasts and creates, and what's strong and what's not being challenged, and what's in unity agreement is like more into what is lasting, strong realness, and then underlaying holograms that are older than this one, kind of being my definition of real. And then the spirit emanating that realness at its core, and then you trying to emanate realness to everything. That is your hologram as you release the holograms of others imprinting on you, so that you can release what you don't want to be as not real, and it has no energy, and then things that are trying to be uncreated in your reality that you want to be real, you take care of the thing, the motivation behind stopping that. And interview it, because there might be a good reason why the rest of the reality isn't agreeing to what you want to be real, and then what it takes to, if there is a compromise or a negotiation in bringing it to realness, or something like what you want to be real, and then like, oh, if I just tweak it a little bit, then everyone agrees, kind of thing. And then you being able to sense into that with your heart. Oh, thank you for watching the video game. Let me know if you like the video games, and I'll continue. I don't know how many people actually want it. Like, the more people that subscribe and share kind of concept will tell me if you like it, because I'm trying to get past censorship. So share the videos if you can, because share it to your asleep people, your sleep friends that like video games, to wake them up. I will be gentle, and then that will help me know that you like them, and I'll do more. That's why I'm doing them, to help branch off into other people that wouldn't usually wake up. So here's a question: does a over being have to be sleeping or dreaming to be the lower base hologram, to be in the lower base hologram, or can they be simultaneously dreaming while they're awake? Both. Most of the people in base, like most people's bodies that are in base reality, they're dreaming them are asleep, and we're coming out of the wounded period of like the takeover from Atlantis and her going into a coma, and then her slowly having parts of herself wake up. So yeah, most of the people are asleep, and some people believe they're awake, and there's projections of holograms to make them believe that and keep going with that. But there's the difference between when you're really awake and not is probably dramatic. Like, I'm still figuring out. In the beginning, I was like, oh, how do I wake up? Oh, cheat codes. Get this code inputted into the pod, and like, oh, it opens up. And then I went through the scenario of it opening up, and then seeing all these projections and vision of me waking up, and then the to-do list after, and then forming what I would do. And as long as you get an accurate scenario of the environment, the other pods around you, the holding place or whatever if it's outside, the nearby Archon bases, the Apex Predators, the AI systems, the one in the pod, the branching one that wants to connect to everything, and other things, and then you having a chess move to outdo that, then the strategy form is valuable, but always be in the perception that you could somehow form past any barriers or illusion or simulations and penetrate past them and be like, oh, I didn't actually wake up, I'm still asleep there. But you still have the strategy for when you wake up, and just keep like pushing to wake it up and figure out and try the next step. It's a little annoying, but it's obviously worth it since they want to put so many simulations to preventing us from waking up. So I'm still in that challenging mode. I don't think currently my base reality is awake there, but like what I have been able to do even when it's not awake, there's a lot other things that you can do besides getting it to wake up. That's like the strong big activation. That's the power, the big really powerful one. But there's all this other stuff you can do in the meantime, like hacking the hologram, cheat codes, things making this dream better and more lucid in the meantime. And of course keep pushing to reach that. But some people will be believing they're awake and not be, so be careful. I'm not saying that everyone that believes that is. It's just I'm very skeptical because it's somewhat hard. And if you can figure out the technology of, it's me getting down to the point where I'm like, oh, I gotta figure out the technology of sleepwalking, and then figure out how to like get that body to stop, because like you can move here and not affect that body at all. And it's like an interesting pod that we're in, and it's not. I'm trying to be vague because I'm not saying my perception of base reality is 100% like accurate, because I'm constantly challenging it. But so far, it's kind of held up to a certain thing in what I've been sensing. I think you have to actually get that body to move and get yourself out or detach yourself. And there's a door on the inside that you can unlock, because there's a way to get out of it. I am testing the psionic things and how to activate and things. There might be, but I've tried a bunch already, and most of them just end up with simulations of taking me down a path of believing that I'm out. So sorry if that's not a fun answer. That nobody's like no, but yeah, it's kind of hard. But any little thing you can do there makes a big impact here too, and you don't have to wake up. But you can, if you do. Good job. Like help everyone else. I don't know if they can fully. As some of the pods won't just open, like it's a little dangerous if they just open forcibly, because there's like life support systems involved. So but not discouraging people from trying as much as they can. And it's not all bad. Again, it's like an original thing from Earth to have an experienced dream that was taken over and made into an energy harvesting farm. So take it back. So otherwise, this dream really helps in protecting us. It protects a lot of things from some really horrible things that would happen. Some reality warping parasites. Here's a question. And sometimes you can dream and kind of dream concepts from base reality. Most of them will be symbolic though, and things that want your attention, because there's a lot that would want to steal energy through base reality. All else fails, break the rules. I like that. Make the rules. Thanks for all the questions. Yep. Think of all the new players. Just getting. Yep. Yeah, this mask ritual. Yep. 6 feet apart. Wear a mask. Bringing in a new world is what they're wanting, and then different people, factions are trying to control that. It can be re-hijacked by the light, just so you know. But still, and that would go into like people getting pissed off from wearing a mask, and then like them getting to wake up in a scenario where they wouldn't normally. If that can be flipped. I can't wait to play Earth and do everything backwards. yeah, is that yeah, try originality, and yeah, it's kind of like that Ready Player One thing. It's a lot like that, and then him finding the secret to the game in the race game was going backwards through the whole map. Mission, cool. Let's see, question: can you give your perspective and explanation about walk-ins? Yet we said that. Future self face to face in 3D. We are on ships. We are
ET. Yay, thank you for that perspective. Thank you. Love you guys. I don't like updates. He said PS4 update. Anyone for this? I'm not for updates. They love any like contract that's like more than a page long. I hate having to sign. It's like they usually will have, if they're not like just reiterating some of the same things over again and in different ways so they can make sure that they cover their bases. Besides that point, a lot of it would just be catching and getting an upper hand. So I don't like those contracts. They just keep making them because they think they can, and they force people to. I think there needs to be laws against it, because like that South Park episode, oh, you agreed to being like that horrible date movie, Human Centipede. But you don't know what I'm talking about. There's a South Park episode that like, oh, the iPhone like had an update and he got him to sign up. Just like he didn't read it, and everyone in the show just acted like, oh, you didn't read it, like you're supposed to. It's like everyone. It's like the perception is like, oh yeah, everyone reads this. It's like barely anyone reads in this reality, as far as I know. And it's like they're not giving you an option anyway. And you just bought an iPhone, and what are you gonna do? So honestly, they should give you the option. These companies are immune to suing. That should go away. Yeah, update. Don't like them. You got to reject them. A lot of it goes along with spiritual contracts too, but like sometimes you can't avoid it. On the weather, sun, and moods. Okay. Or the kidney being way higher. Yeah. The kidneys being higher in the like Mandela effect. People thought they were lower in that region where you punch the kidneys, and it's like, nope, it's protected by the rib cage now. Mandela effect. I was awake in bed. One of my light body white color got up and left my body. I chased it up in the air and said, don't leave. The light body said, goodbye, I am out of here, and it left. Was that a walkout? Are there walkouts? It's a very rare scenario if a part of yourself, a light body, wants to leave. Some light body, like biophoton emissions, will have, for like all the chakras and their technology of emission, will be non-local, and they'll be around doing stuff, and sometimes they'll get self-defeating and go place, and they'll be doing negative things, and also mostly energy harvested or controlled by something else. And those you want to cut off cords from or uncreate anyway, especially if it's still linked to you. If it's a soul shard, yeah, that's rare that I would want to do that unless it has somewhere else to be, or if you're spiritually divesting yourself to something that you see as worth it, but ultimately that's temporary, because an ultimate unity is at the end of it all, where you all come back together, unless it's like meant to make an actual existing self, and it has to exist there and continue. So it might be some other thing that's trying to project that onto you. So ultimately, you want to meditate into wholeness and do whatever you can to release any projections onto you of not being whole. There are walkouts, but that's only in the perception of something else walking in and then walking out. This scenario I think you're talking about is if a part of you is leaving.
you would want to question if it's supposed to, or if it's going off to another place, and then trust fall into your higher self and empower them to do what needs to be done if you need to get it back, or if it's in divine plan. Could you give some guidance, please, about children raised in MK Ultra programs that the adults have some quite hardcore attachments that as adults have some, yeah. Guidance, I mean, there's a lot of people putting out stuff. It depends on what's helping them with it. MK Ultra goes into mind control through fracturing and making altars that are programmable, usually with machines or psionics. So it'd be about bringing wholeness to them, releasing the holograms of others, seeing how anchored in time the visitations and MK Ultra programming is in their timeline, how much they remember physically, and how much are bleed overs, how much are anchored in time that need to happen to allow something else, and then how much of that timeline, because like the MK Ultra thing is an affront against humanity, it's an incursion, it doesn't necessarily need to exist, but it's put a bunch of energy forth to continuing to exist, so it's a parasite. So you detaching from it, getting it to shrink down, and whatever you can get out of your reality that doesn't need to exist, wonderful, if it's negative. And then you differentiate what's imprinting, and then how much in reality it's anchored. If it's like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can like try like either pushing that out to making it not exist anymore, or changing the timeline, because they'll be like, oh, it is anchored in time, you do need it, but you have the ability to change the whole timeline, because otherwise it'd be a lot of abuse and rape or other things, and you can go back to that moment in the Schrodinger's cat box, because it's separate from this observable reality, and make it so that you're giving yourself what you need to influence yourself on the timeline to avoid as much trauma and negative consequences as possible that would come over and bleed into this reality to affect who you are now, changing your path. So and the positive chess moves is it's entering your game, you have the chess move to take part of it down. Usually I'll see that as the timelines of all the projects getting progressively better in moral standpoint, getting out of negative into neutral, and eventually into positive programs of influence, because it's not just like one program, and there's all these in the background, in the secret space program, and the projects, my labs, all that. Some of it more anchored in time and will not be able to be taken out, but can be changed from a dark project to a neutral to a positive eventually through the members that are involved and them healing themselves, and then collapsing that, harvesting negative parasitic grid, continuing itself in negative behavior, because there are some positives to it, because it teaches people abilities, and well, not the mind control aspect, but like some of the projects, and like there's like force activations, and some of it's not that great, but sometimes we see it as worth it in our body. If like instance, if somebody was in a project and they went through torture and it activated altar, kind of like Deadpool is super healing, that wouldn't be something that normally happens in natural scenarios. So then the person's spirit would then advise if that's worth it or not to keep, and then continue that. And then if they're keeping it, then they have to heal it and bring it back to wholeness and open up the altar so they can utilize it now. But then there's rules about that because of this reality and how fragile it is, and things that want to put blocks, and large amounts of blocks on us, to stopping whatever will change the global narrative. Yep. Timeline events did it happen on Syrian workstation? Still, yeah, this was a question back before. Excuse me. The creational event for this timeline has a lot going on with time travel and is constantly being changed, so it's not set in stone, and it's kind of got like a weird vision thing you can do in sense when looking at it that has a lot of data. It's hard to organize, and so you'd be like seeing multiple timelines try to imprint onto it. Syrians were involved in it. There are a lot. Not just them though. A lot of species were involved in that, and not just the species. Earth. Syrian works. So workstation. Not sure what that is. Is that like a reality, like the greater multidimensional beings of Syrians, like the gods and goddesses or deities and stuff that came over from Syria? This especially with the Anunnaki and the moving solar system. Some of that, I don't think they're control of it. They're one of the ones that are imprinting on it. Some positively, some negatively, and like in between. They're not the only ones. It's a workstation, maybe a programmer thing you're talking about in imprinting. Some of the Syrian immigrations that... So like Earth hired main authorities for this reality and setting it up in different layers, and then some of them would have been hired from Sirius A, B, or all the different star systems, but not all entirely at all. Sirius is similar to Earth because it's like it has garden worlds, and it's adopting a lot of species. Like I see a lot of the DNA lineages in our DNA and other species came from Sirius before they came here. And then some wars and stuff, and then a lot of them fled here. Would you say? So Brian Langsdal, hello Brian. Would you say we are on the central timeline now, meaning one unified timeline? Have the timelines wars been ended? I've heard from someone... Sorry, this is hard to read this part of it. For some reason, it's not letting me see it easily. There's like a thing that's... This chat thing is not that great. Let me see if I can find ways to see it. Okay, that's better. Okay. Meaning one unified timeline. Have you? I've heard from someone who seemed to know that much time travel and time wars have been resolved. A good question. So we're on a maintained merging timeline. A central in importance mission goal, graduation for all beings involved, and an overlay of shared data and information between all parties involved and their timelines and their timelines they're holding on to that branch off from them, the timelines that branch off from Earth, solar system, and the other authorities involved. So yeah, you can use those words if you want. And yeah, it's unifying. It's in a constant ebb and flow of splitting and merging. It's like a garden. They each has a purpose, and the splitting allows things that would disrupt the timeline if it was just left to be on there to be able to be quarantined and maintained, and then be brought back to resolution to the eventual point where it can come back in after the problem was resolved. If it's a negative timeline. It also branches off ones for concepts and probabilities, and to harvest them for best concepts and like a being that wouldn't have existed otherwise on this timeline. Then eventually merge. They come here, and they're like all of a sudden they're Mandela affected here. It's like interesting. And the Time War armors I don't think will ever end, but they get less dramatic. Less beings, negative beings gain access to the timeline. Less of more healing of the authority holders, because it has to do with authority in time travel and consciousness time travel. Not barely anyone has the authority to do this, and they have to earn it. And if they get it stolen or abuse it, then they lose it. And it will then be done with simulations and them believing that they're doing it. So it's these parasites. The authorities have to come back into empowerment to reclaim all their stolen authority, and then the parasites lose it, and then there's less wars and more unity between the different factions. 3 2. Okay. I'm going on. What's going on with the vaccinations? Lots of horrible things. Is this something forced on us to stop our primal awakening? Good intuition. I'm not like it's against my religion or whatever religious exemption. You can't take that away, even if they pretend to. It's all just rhetoric, statutory statutes, codes, and regulations. It's not law. It doesn't go along with older maxims. If you get more into law, you can prevent anything, and it's essentially the same thing as rape. It's forced penetration. All forced penetration is rape. So if you want to take a vaccination, go for it. There's like things. I'm not against vaccines, like especially the ones that aren't needles and then don't go directly into your bloodstream. There's a concept for the mucous membrane and the tonsils that go into immunology of how we can take in a microbe and then learn how our body how it learns to become immune to it as fast as possible and successfully, and with nutritional supplements and support and all these things that the mainstream science won't go into because it doesn't make the money. So a lot of it can be faltered on its head, the ones that were being given to us. And if you find those suppressed immunologists that go into this subject, do. And then if you can find ways to do your own vaccination, like such as things that just flare up the immune system, such as getting stung by a bee, that like increases the immune system quite a bit. And if you can put a virus or something happened. Let me see what to do. Let me get it off my screen and then back on to let me just give you that to look at. Some technical difficulties. Let's get. Where is my camera? Media source. Okay, I found it. Alright, now I can just do this, and I'll have that in the background. Set up. Yeah, the Skype call dropped, that's why. And like I got this, woo! Very professional. Maybe if I set up a thing in the background, that'll be nice. Let's pick something fun. I'll do the Witcher map, and then we'll just have that. How about that? And I'm playing this. This is a nice little toroidal field going into... It's not there. There we go. Oh. Toroidal field for the body. This is the one that I tune into, is most accurate for the body. So if you want like an accurate understanding of electromagnetics in the field, double torus is the way to go. The concept is, and this is how you would steer a tornado. Let's see if I can fix this so I can get back to the questions. Okay, if that works for everyone or whatever. Okay, so yeah, like as your chakras emit, like when you're dealing with power, it then flows up into both toroidal fields. One goes up and down, and one goes under into the root and up. And they meet in the center, and it's like a very good fluid dynamic. And you can make free energy devices off this design too, because it's what gets it to all the energy to circulate everywhere. If you're like emitting something into your field, how would you get it everywhere? This is how it works, and it's very well designed. I think it's made by the Thrive movement in that movie show. So that's cool. I think Nassim Harriman had something to do with it. It works in the black holes and electromagnetic fields. It's also in process with the Earth. Like the Earth would fit into both those toroidal fields, and then you know how the northern hemisphere has its own like weather patterns, and the southern is separate. It's similar functions. Everything overlaid. See what we got. Questions. I'm a little... Okay, what's going on? There's some force. Yeah, I'm not able to take vaccines. They shut down my abilities when I had, and I had to go through a lot to detox them, so I'm not okay with it. But like, if you want to, go for it. I prefer to make my own and have an immune system. Anything forced on me is all Machiavellian, Orwellian. Seem to know. I just joined. And if it's, yeah, I'm sorry for the kids that are forced, you know, to, if they go to school and all that, and it's not fun. If you go more into legal stuff, you'll find law aligns with you. It's only people that are very sought in their ways and are, you know, thugs with guns and stuff. They'll think that they know what's right. It is fun for me to watch. Thank you for watching. Chrono Trigger. Oh yeah, Chrono Trigger. I'm a boomer. I'm a boomer, so never really played video games, but the concept of Avatar helps me understand the multi-layers of Matrix. Yeah, agree. Yep, gift. Such comments when playing avoid killing. Yeah, I do try to avoid killing in video games. I used to also, I tried both. There was also that assassin, what was it, God, what is it called? Hitman.
And I would like try different things like not killing anyone except the person, and then that was your contract to, or kill everyone on the map. And sometimes it's funny, but whatever. It's a game. Not this game matters though, of course. Calvin and Donk. Don't say Laura, please. So anything but she has name value. Other will find guys who contacting you next week, Sean. Still hang out. I'm watching you play the YouTube. Thank you. It's not many questions, so opt out of video. Can we opt out of video games? Go for it. What do you mean? Like this one or the video games in discs and stuff? Yeah. Yeah, you can. Oh, for this games, for this, yeah, you can say no more games. You flip the chessboard up. Say I'm only programming myself. You reclaiming your hologram is that, and they'll attach onto it's that attachy energy is games, and you not agreeing to anyone else's projections, and you get good at feeling when they're attaching and then not letting them, because they'll try to like just seep in when you're not looking. Good information about Mournian attachment involving the Empire and shielding from them. Go for no audio. Is there a live stream or pre-recorded? It's right now, not pre-recorded, live stream. Some updates make things worse. Yeah. Fine in time. Yeah, Matthew left a bit ago. Love you too, Ryan. Yeah, I'm just finishing up answering the questions. I don't know. It may be OCD of me just to answer everyone's questions. I feel a little rude, but I probably shouldn't be. Especially, I guess in the beginning I'll do it, and then it will get overwhelming to the point where I'll just be bombarded with questions. I'm like, nope, can't do it all. So in the meantime, I got zings. Like things wanting your 3 nights ago, middle of the night, I got zinged from my torso on up, and it woke me up with quite a pleasant but subtle startle. Before I even knew it, I was smiling and just a little bit giggling for no reason, but I knew it was good. This never happens before, but it was an amazing feeling. I was never forget. Could it have been something from the universe or some past? Probably experienced something. I know people. I get experiences where I start bilocating somewhere. I'll have a jolt, or if I go somewhere, or a visitation, temporal dilation is usually when that happens. But depends on the zing. It's usually something that wants your attention, and if you feel into your source of happiness that's coming out, it will have information to it of like where, why, what triggered that, if there's experience or memory behind it. I can go into that. Choppy service. I'm gonna go back. Trim. No access. Just yet. Head on. Swivel. Wait. What do you mean? Is the stream not working? Shoot, I hope it is. Okay, let me just check. If it's not working, okay, I think it's working. Cool. When you get like, yeah, let me know if the stream goes dead or something. I want to
stop that. Because if I'm just here talking to myself, oh god. But whatever. Walk with dragons, call a herd of unicorns for trampling the polarity cults. Okay. I like that. Thumbs up. Yep, yep. Rainbows. Yeah, I need to get out of here, right? Oh, thank you for letting me know. I don't want to just be here all the time. Yep, you guys are talking a lot, so okay, last question. There's one. Are there an infinite number of timelines? If so, could it be being shifted to the timeline they want to see? Are there any authorities that block one from shifting? Pretty good one. Infinite timeline, yes, there's degrees of realness past the layers of thought and creation that goes behind them, and their maintenance in the future costs energy. It's created on the individual, the earth, and the multiplayer hologram between different people and other authorities. So infinite in potential and the realm of potentials, finite but growing in maintained realness of experience of different ones that have purpose. And yeah, you can shift. This is the quantum jumping ability. I did a show about it. There's rules to it though, so every time you shift and jump, it will usually be in a place of safety and something that's in the unseen and what's allowed to shift, and it being seamless. And depending on how much power and structure you have behind the jump can make it even more powerful. And then you taking a lot of the chess moves we're doing are trying to help people that are anchored into the negative timelines get out and then rise up, and then the negative timelines disintegrate. Okay, I think we got all these questions. Wonderful. I'm just going to check all the chat rooms if we got everything. Thank you all for being here. I don't really see much of any more questions, so thank you. Double checking. So thank you guys for being a part of this stream. I think I'm gonna head out now. Love you all. Yeah, and if you want like more content, Psionic League on YouTube, psionicleague.com. All types of product consultations. Sign up in the scheduler. It's how you get a hold of me fast. It's hard to reach me because there's like a gauntlet, but I eventually will get to all the emails. But you know, so much time, and eventually I want to get a scheduler or something, a secretary. So yeah, if you're that type of person, also contact me. And I'm also looking for a website designer so I can make everything better, and maybe some marketers. Neither here nor there. Let me know what shows you and topic you'd like me to go into, and if you didn't have your question answered here, write in the comments and we may answer it next time. And if you like more shows like this, let us know, and or in the video game topics, let me know and share. The more subscribers after I put out a video, the more I'll be like, oh, they like it, I'll put out more of this. And then if you have any game ideas, I like doing soft disclosure or stuff going into abilities. Thank you all. Have a wonderful night or wherever you are, and a lovely magical world as we're all growing up. Peace. Cheers, friends. Love you.